control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all connected but separated, misunderstood and so frustrated. A million armies of one have invaded, watching you and watching me. We live behind glass curtains that act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. We wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye, we're the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching have taken over. We the people are little brother, standing by to dethrone each other, watching you and watching me. Paranoid, the lens is our weapon, desensitized in our lust for attention, democratized by our voyeur obsessions, watching you and watching me. Slaves to perfection, don't let them project you as you are, reveal your every flaw. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye, we're the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Stay in line, don't make a mistake. We're watching. We watched you for so long. We wait for you to fall. We will expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching
Let your experience begin right now. From high atop the mountains of British Columbia to you listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Radio. You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, on Twitter, @SpacedOutRadio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can follow us on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR, or on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride as we are live on Spaced Out Radio.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The deeper I go, the deeper I fall.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, and thank you for listening in at spacedoutradio.com, on Spreaker and Revolution Radio as we welcome you to tonight's show as we broadcast out of Uncle Jimbo's cabin right here in the great white north of Canada, live on this Monday night, early Tuesday morning if you're on the East Coast. Here at Spaced Out Radio, we broadcast every night of the week as we want to be your one-stop shop when it comes to the supernatural, conspiratorial, ufological, spiritual, and so much more. The guitar god, Ron Bumblefoot THAL, formerly of Guns N' Roses, is the man behind our theme music. Bumblefoot is the official sound of SOR. Also, you can check us out on Twitter, @SpacedOutRadio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Find us on TuneIn. Download our shows from iTunes. And, of course, our website is spacedoutradio.com. At this time, we'd like to say hello to everyone listening in on the Revolution Radio chat room, on the High Plains Talk Radio Network, in the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker, along with our fans on Facebook at Euphoria Chronicles, Chronicles of the Unknown, Forest Moon Paranormal, and our flagship chat room, the SOR Space Travelers. Have you signed up for the SOR Space Travelers Club yet? It's only $5 a month. And with that, your name gets entered into private monthly draws, access to private group interviews, access to a special section on our website, and much more. We're going to give you a hell of a lot more than just access to our archives. While on our website, you can read our latest blogs, check out Eric Markham's SOR Spacewire for your latest and weird news. We also have a new feature on our website called the SOR Sightlines Report. If you've had an experience and you want it investigated by our researcher, paranormal, ufological, Bigfoot, doesn't matter. Just fill out a Sightlines report. Mike Schmidt, our lead investigator, will get back to you. All information is 100% confidential. If you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember it is the largest nonprofit online radio station going. Take the time to visit freedomslips.com and donate today. The field of ufology has really seen a shift in dynamics over the course of the last 30 years, from eyewitness reports and testimony to video footage of today of orbs, strange lights, and craft everywhere. But the problem with today's field of research is that we really don't know what we can believe anymore. Disinformation, maybe from the government, is everywhere. Combined with the creation of CGI, they've literally driven the most experienced ufologists to pulling out their hair because no one seems to know what is real and what isn't anymore. And really, you can't blame them. When technology advanced so quickly, it became apparent that video sharing websites like YouTube were going to be pelted with fake films. The same can be said for Bigfoot footage as well. And in reality, it's made ufologists like Michel Deschamps of MUFON.com step back from the people who were filing the reports, especially spaceships caught on tape. Now, the irony of this, because here at Spaced Out Radio, We're all about the experience. But as Michel will tell us tonight, there's a real fine line on what's believable and what's not. And he's not the only one questioning where the direction of the field of UFO research is going. Michel Deschamps, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio for your second time. Good to have you back, and I guess this time you actually got your voice back.
Yes, I actually do. Thanks, Dave.
Real pleasure.
I'm glad to be back.
Real pleasure to have you, my friend, because you know what? We talk a lot about UFOs on this show and the field of UFOlogy and the study research that goes along with it. And very rarely do we get a Canadian perspective on things because there's not a lot of people in our country who are doing this. And if they are, they keep it real close to their chests. Why do you think there is such a, I don't want to use the word cover-up, but such a lack of quality research that goes on above the 49th parallel?
Maybe perhaps because they are feeling the same way I'm feeling. We don't get any funding for doing this kind of stuff, the field work. It's a lot of wear and tear on the vehicles. And frankly, that's one of the main reasons why although I miss field investigating, being on an actual site of any happening, things are so they can get costly, and it's not funding that we have. We have no money at all. Everything's out of our own pockets. So that is one problem. Another problem is that for myself, anyways, trying to educate people on the more recent sightings is pretty difficult to do when I'm not getting any reports or people are unaware of my existence or the existence of my website, for instance. So it's and there's also the fear factor or the fear of being called crazy. The researchers themselves, I think we touched upon this before, where maybe it is getting very difficult in modern day times to distinguish between a real UFO and something possibly man-made / military. It may make people turn away from the usual investigating because they might say to themselves, why bother? Because it might turn out to be something totally explainable and not so mysterious.
Do you still buy the fact that people are having sightings?
Oh, yes. We've been under observation for a very long time, and I don't think that's ever stopped and will ever stop. I personally believe that some alien races are probably making it here for the very first time, although the humanoid sighting reports seem to be very far in between nowadays compared to what it was a few decades ago. So, no, I'm not. I wouldn't be surprised at all if a lot more or just as many UFOs are flying. They may have upgraded a little bit. Perhaps now it is easier to spot them if we have infrared cameras, which actually makes them undetectable to the naked eye. Other than that, and we can't afford the equipment. I mean, you could save up for it but we're not going to get any funding for it or any donations from the government, that is. So we have to sort of stay ahead of what's going on sighting-wise and perhaps get our hands on technology that will allow us to keep tabs on what's going on more recently.
Now, for the people who have never heard you speak before, Michel, and the last time you were on, I'm going to tell you our audience has grown leaps and bounds, which is a good thing. I would love it if you would explain to people that not only are you a ufologist researcher, but you're also an experiencer as well. You have seen numerous weird craft in the sky. So break that down for us.
Okay, well, I'll just give you a quick synopsis of my life. I was born in northern Quebec in 1964, August 1st, In 1968, in December, my father, who was worked in mines, in nickel mines, and up north in Quebec, there was gold mines, decided to move us to Sudbury, Ontario, where two of the largest mining giants actually reside. We have Inco, now Inco Valley, because it got bought out by the Brazilians, and Falconbridge, which is now called Xstrata, and I don't know who owns that. But my dad worked for Falconbridge for 26 years, and unbeknownst to me at the time, being a little boy, that Sudbury turns out to have been one of the hot spots, among other places around the world, for UFO sightings, both daytime and nighttime. I later found this out when I was doing my archive research at the local newspaper archive and finding out how many sightings had actually taken place here. So that, and people keep asking me today, what came first, the sighting, my first sighting, or was it the interest? I think it could have been both at the same time, because I did have a sighting when I was 9, but I thought maybe it was something copied off TV that I memorized, but it was only confirmed like years later. And then I started, before even high school, I started collecting reports here and there. I had heard the term flying saucer for the first time in 1974 or 75. And it started from that. And I never expected to have had as many sightings as I've had, which didn't take too long after. Initially, the first 10 sightings, I would second-guess myself and go through my own personal checklist. No, it's not a plane. No, it's not a helicopter, planet, satellite, meteor, bolide, meteor, whatever. After a while, I was totally convinced that this was a reality. And I didn't need to be convinced anymore. And so, which explains why in the last 5, 6, 7 years, I haven't really skywatched. So Sudbury being one of the main spots of interest, apparently, because of the mining, which is the reason why UFOs are possibly attracted here, it just piqued my curiosity. The more and more I would find out about how much of a history this place has.
And in Canada here, there are a lot of people who have seen UFOs, even had ET experiences. You could pretty much go to any area of Canada to see them. The darker the better, because it's easier to see. The more north you are, you don't have the light pollution as you do more in the southern part of the country where 90% of the population lives. Do you think that when it comes to ufology in Canada, that the main reason why maybe there isn't as many reports as there was before is that because people are getting used to seeing lights in the sky, or maybe their eyes are too focused on their phones looking down? Or do you think that they pretty much feel nothing's going to happen with that report and I really don't want to get involved, the typical Canadian attitude?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of all that. Definitely nowadays with the cell phones, people have a tendency of even walking down the street, texting, looking down, and they could be missing the most amazing experience of their lives if they were to look up at the sky. Not to say that there's a guarantee that they'll see something. For instance, I myself, if I were to go back out to skywatch, I probably wouldn't see anything until about maybe a week's time, because I'm familiar with the night sky. But cell phones is one problem. Another problem is the skepticism, or the belief in the lies that we have been told by the military, the government, that this is all fantasy. There's no such things as UFOs. I mean, I work with a few guys that actually never experienced anything. One guy's actually older than myself, and I thought that by now he would have seen something. He's often outside doing photography, and yet think it's all BS, and that just as it's stated in the accompanying letter to the closure of Project Blue Book, 3% of reported sightings is a very small percentage, so there's probably nothing to it. And it's sad because if people were to know the facts, they would be shocked. I still believe that the percentage, as it was found out through Stan Friedman's work with Project Blue Book Special Report 14, and yes, there were 14 reports. I have number 1 to 13, and then Special Report Project Blue Book Report 14 is actually, I have it on my website as a PDF, but we'll get to that in a minute, because right now I found a new web host for my site, and not all the files are working, the videos, the audios, and some of the PDFs. But Stanton Friedman's work actually demonstrated that the percentage of unknowns, excuse me, out of 3,201 sighting was actually 23.5% unknown. And this was a category separated from the category of insufficient information. If you did not have sufficient information, you could not classify the object as an unknown. So this is something that the public was never told. And unless you were able to view some of Stanton Friedman's lectures or presentations online, on YouTube, for instance. So there needs to be clarification that this is a real phenomenon. It's been happening a lot longer than modern times, meaning 1947 on. I believe they've been here since before biblical times. And yeah, we could get into that a little bit later, but yeah, I don't know if that's the whole, going back to if this is would explain why the reports are few in between. It's happened here where there's been nothing for a few years, and all of a sudden I get a flurry of reports that all of a sudden seem to come out of nowhere. And it's been like that too, represented in the newspaper archive as well. As one particular year, I think was 1955, where nothing really happened. In 1956, and then things started picking up again in 57, 58, 59. And it did that for off and on every 5 to 6 years since 1947, right up to the late 70s or early 80s. The research I did myself with the newspaper clippings, for instance, there was a lot of reports in the newspapers from 1947 on to, as I got closer to December of 1989, the articles were so far in between that I decided to cut off my research at December of 1989. Although I have subsequently found additional clippings from the 90s and the 2000s, but I think the heyday of flying saucers is gone by, and now we find ourselves very lucky if we get a fascinating sighting or a report from an eyewitness of something that is totally outside conventional explanations.
I fully understand with that. Do you think the main reason why people aren't reporting is because maybe they are, but those reports are not getting through? I mean, let's face it. Everyone wonders what MUFON does with their reports. Everybody wonders if the government, which conspiracy says, it really controls about 70% of the online UFO reporting sites. You know, I mean, there's a lot of things going on when it comes to these topics that could starve people from getting that information out.
Yeah, I agree. For my personal experience with MUFON, I was with MUFON Ontario for a few years, and I submitted to them a very detailed report of a sighting that happened to me. And not just a sighting, actually, I videotaped the object in broad daylight. And it took me, I don't know how many years, 5, 6, 7 years to get my original report back. It was in somebody's closet. And with MUFON in general, I feel about the same, that they were sitting on thousands and thousands of cases. Oh, so they have 70,000 plus case files of UFO reports, and we're talking like UFO reports that would be undeniable and definitely not man-made or military in origin. And they had a program not too long ago called Hangar One. That's been canceled. I've been waiting to see if there's anything that will spawn from that show, but nothing as of yet. And it sucks because UFO researchers, or at least maybe MUFON members, will bitch that nobody believes them, nobody's on the same page. Well, I basically say, well, yeah, don't be so surprised. Nobody's on the same page because you're not sharing the information freely. You either wait to have a publication that's worth enough money for you to make that off of by selling it, basically putting up your information for ransom, and not informing people like I do when I used to go and public speak in schools and universities. It's a crime to keep sitting on that information because it could turn the tables on everything if it were to be let out. It's the same thing with government files. I mean, how many more files? I don't believe the governments anywhere, the Australian government, the Canadian government, the American government especially, I don't think they've ever released actually everything they've ever had on UFOs. They've probably kept the best of the best juiciest cases, like the radar tracks, landing cases. If it wasn't for us independents, like myself and Ted Phillips and other people who investigated the landing cases, I mean, nobody would be aware of these things. And I say it's a crime to just sit on that and not share. To me, UFO information should be shared freely, and it's for the benefit of mankind. Because the one question, among other questions, we've been asking ourselves for thousands of years, are we alone? And the answer is a big resonating no. We're not alone, never have been, never will be. But we are told by the powers that be, that we're imagining things. People are smoking pot or on worse hallucinatory drugs. I've talked to tradespeople that can't afford to be on drugs, and they've seen UFOs. One of my friends is 80 years old and worked at Inco, and he was a skeptic in the 50s until he started having his sightings in 1966, and then he did a complete turnaround. And I've met other people since then that were total skeptics before their one sighting that they've had, and the sighting was so profound and so close and so terrifying at the time that they've completely went from skeptic to believer.
A good example of that, Michel, is Roswell, New Mexico. Everybody knows about the Roswell crash.
Yeah.
Yet nobody seems to know or has ever heard of the fact that there was a second crash that day. There was a second crash site in San Augustine, New Mexico.
Yeah.
And I'll shamelessly plug this show on November 18th, which is a Friday night. We will actually have an eyewitness to that crash. He's 73, 74 years old now. Gerald Anderson will be on the show with us discussing that San Augustine crash. And anyways, that's a perfect example of what happens with disinformation, with covering up information, whether it's government, whether it's the public, whether it's the media, because we only hear of Roswell. Every year, Roswell has a big celebration around the crash site days. Nobody talks about San Augustine. And that's exactly the whole point. They want us to get that information, they being the government, but they want to control how much of that information we actually are allowed to have. Would you agree with that statement?
Oh, definitely. And Roswell's only famous because of all the civilian witnesses that were there. That they had Roswell was not the first crash case. There was Cape Girardeau in Missouri in 1941. There was also the famous Los Angeles aerial battle in 1942, I believe, February 1942. And there's been subsequent crashes after And people would say, well, that doesn't make any sense. If these beings are so advanced, why would they crash? Well, one particular document that I found in the FBI files was the fact that the super large radar installation that swept across New Mexico actually interfered with the guiding mechanism of the saucers, causing them to crash. In the case of Roswell and St. Augustine, I tend to believe, as Stan Freeman tends to believe, that there was possibly a mid-air collision between two vehicles. One crashed that was practically intact, and the other one totally disintegrated and fell apart in pieces, with the escape pod, if you want to call it that, with the occupants further down, a few miles down from the main gouged out area at the Corona site. So there's been several crashes, and people will say also, well, why New Mexico? The list covers even crashes that took place in Dalnogorsk in Russia. I think there was a crash in South Africa in 1989. But the reason why New Mexico is because at the time, or for a very long time, the three best technologies in the world could be found in New Mexico. You had the V2 rockets, you had the radar installation, and you also had the atomic bomb. And so there was only one place back in 1947 and even in the early 50s where you could find all those technologies, and that was in that general area. I've also heard of reports of UFOs crashing or being seen near White Sands Proving Ground, which is also in New Mexico. And New Mexico is also home to some of the largest military installations and scientific labs in the world. Los Alamos, Sandia Base. In terms of the Air Force bases, you have Curtin Air Force Base near Albuquerque, and Roswell, of course, which was the home of the 509th Bomb Wing, the only bombing wing in the 40s that could drop the atomic bomb, and did drop the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So it's like anything else. It's like us discovering a planet. The first thing we would do is to look for signs of pollution, because signs of pollution would indicate civilization. Then you would look for weaponization to see at what level is their technological achievements in military weapons. And so New Mexico for us is exactly what the aliens would have under observation. With Sudbury and other mining places where we have the largest stack in the world, the largest chimney in the world, it's still, I think, listed in the Guinness Book of World Records. It's like a beacon for them. But speaking of beacons, I think if the UFOs weren't already coming here in mass before 1945, we attracted them, unbeknownst to us, by detonating the first atomic bomb, which sent a silent or invisible shockwave out throughout the universe. And then they looked up and said, holy shit, the kids have found the matches. And ever since then, there's been more sightings as of 1945 and continuing to this day, although we may not be aware of them because, of course, the same problems. People looking down at their belly buttons instead of looking up at the sky, staying indoors and watching the football game instead of being outside more and more. I probably saw more sightings because I don't like sports. I don't watch sports. I'm not. I don't fall for all the distractions that are given to us today. And I'm not the only one who has been made aware of things as of the age of 9. It seems that age 9 is an age where a lot of people have had their first experiences and be made aware that there's a lot more beyond our visual range that actually takes place that needs more investigation, serious investigation.
And I fully agree with you in regards that we need to investigate a little bit more, but let's face it, life is so busy now, people don't have time to go out into the wilderness away from the city to go stare up at the stars. That is about as frequent as trying to find a drive-in movie theater these days. I mean, it's damn near impossible. And when people finally do put their eyes up, they're usually caught off guard by what they saw. They're not comfortable with discussing it. They're not comfortable with, the experience because maybe a beam of light came down, whatever it may be. And on the flip side, we have the government putting out disinformation. We have people not getting their reports followed up on. And it's just a real mishmash of where UFOlogy used to be. And now we throw in YouTube and other video sharing sites where you can't trust a thing that goes on there anymore because people have become so advanced with CGI, with faking films, especially at night, with, and we've all seen the video, Dark at Night, where they're focused in on Venus or Jupiter, whatever the brightest star is in the night, but the camera is shaking, making it look like the star is actually moving. We've all seen those. So how has today's technology really affected the investigation and trying to get down to the answers of what we are looking for?
Yeah, it's pretty well what's happened. The one tip off, I guess, that I get from watching those YouTube videos is that whoever's creating those videos is obviously somebody who's never seen a UFO, because they keep adding. I look at the UFOs on YouTube and they look like the kind of models we would make for science fiction films. UFOs are so plain Jane. Like one of my friend who's a witness who worked at INCO, he says there's one night where this object came down out of the northeast, and it was a 50-foot oval, completely white in color, with one red flashing light at one end and a steady green light on the other, and not knowing which was the front and which was the back. Now, on the YouTube clips, you see these things with appendages sticking out, saucers that morph in and out of their own of shape. They change shape. The background is real, like you'd have the Hudson River and the cityscape of New York, but the UFO in the foreground is completely CGI. I've seen the videos where two jet fighters are following this one saucer, and I said, well, that's obviously a fake because the saucer would leave those two jets in their dust. We don't have, and I couldn't care less if I know what the military has or not. There's no way in hell they can keep up with these things. These objects can go. For instance, the same guy who worked at INCO, that particular sighting in 1967 or 68 was tracked on radar when the object came down out of the sky and disappeared below the radar line for 15 minutes. And when it left the area, it was tracked on radar traveling at 22,000 miles an hour. In the yard itself, it was like 5 to 10 miles slow. Then when it angled up at 45-degree angle, barely missing one of the buildings there, one of the structures at the mine site, it's a huge complex. I even made a model of it, and I plan to make a little video of the actual sighting using a small model that I made of the UFO and the complex. And yeah, the radar, he had by then a lot of reports made to the radar base, so they were open enough with them to tell them that they had tracked this object leaving at 22,000 miles an hour. Now, I know another video was shot in northern Manitoba, and the object was tracked or clocked at 33,000 miles an hour. So there's still hopefully some things that can, little hints here and there that actually can tell us or help us distinguish from what's real and what's not. But the YouTube videos, sadly, a majority of them are fake. There's a few that kind of raised my eyebrow, and I have to admit that I've placed them on my website so people can take a look at them, because there's something about it that just tells me that this possibly could be real. But if I'm told that the CGI technology is so good where the background goes blurry, the foreground goes blurry, then everything goes clear at the same time and it makes sense, but I'm still yet told that it's fake, then I will take it down from my site. But because having seen UFOs myself and understanding the behavior, when I see something similar on some of the videos, my little voice tells me that it's a real clip. No, unless I'm told. And plus, you have to look for the provenance too. If it lists the area where it was shot, a lot of times the YouTube videos are just posted up there, and there's nothing written about them, where they were shot, how long the sighting took place, the duration, the direction of movement, whether there was lack of sound or sound present during the sighting, etc. So it's very hard to tell sometimes. But for a guy like myself who self-taught in becoming a trained observer, even looking at videos, sometimes I can tell the difference or sort of feel which ones are real and which ones are fake or possibly fake.
It is pretty easy to tell some of them. The one that always cracks me up is this huge invasion of ships over it looks like a Mexican beach resort or something along those lines. And here I'm thinking, are people that gullible to think that this is real, considering that if that were to happen, every major news source, whether you believe the media is infiltrated or not, and I don't think it is. But even if you believe that, and there was 4 or 5 ships coming at low altitude at dusk, flying over your resort where you're staying at, and you just happen to catch it on camera, that is going to be international news. It's not going to be held back. All of a sudden, the military isn't going to storm every newsroom saying, oh, you can't run that, you can't run that. I mean, that's just absolute moronic if you think that. Okay? But you know what I'm saying, Michel, is there is so much CGI out there, and people are buying into it. And if they're buying into that disinformation, it's really not doing the field of research any type of positivity at all.
Yeah. Yeah, and the thing is with the media, the mainstream media, I have to admit, they are owned. They're owned and bought and paid for. The local media is different. I've gotten better results from talking with the local media than, let's say, mainstream media. Mainstream media will only use a UFO story if it's a dead or slow news week. But I think that even within the ranks of the media, the mainstream media, which is one of our biggest problems because they won't look at this, they're told to look the other way. People talk about disclosure, and I say, well, disclosure is not going to come from the government. What's going to need to happen is something akin to Independence Day, but without the invasion scenario, where UFOs, super large UFOs, so large that people will know right away, can't be military flying this because there's no sound and they're like miles wide, having all these objects over all the main metropolitan cities all over the world at the same time for weeks on end. People driving on a highway, stopping, pulling over, and standing outside and say, holy shit. First of all, they'd say, what the hell is that? And second of all, say, holy shit, we've been lied to. Then the media would have to be forced to look, because if they wouldn't do it on their own, the alternate media, the alternative media, like RT and other stations like that, would then put the mainstream media to shame by scooping them on what would be the biggest story of the millennium, or since the origins of mankind. I mean, the fact that there's visitors here, several different visitors. People still, sometimes you hear them talk about UFOs, and the way they talk about UFOs is that they're coming from one source. I have on my website, and I'm the only one to have done this, I've cataloged 85 or 86 different species, and those are apart from the ones that are performing the abductions. It needed to be put up there because I believe that there's many, many different races. Most of them are all to be, because we'd be done for. We'd be done for if any of them were like a conquering race, like the Klingons, for instance. Thank God there's no such thing like the Klingons or even the aliens from the Aliens movies, because we'd be screwed. We wouldn't stand a chance with those kinds of creatures. But on my website, under the UFO occupants page, you will see what's been reported worldwide. And having something like that, like an Independence Day type scenario, would be the only thing that would make people within the ranks of the mainstream media all of a sudden decide to turn tail and say, this needs to be reported. This would be an awakening on a mass scale. And that's exactly what we're going to need. And it's going to happen. Sooner or later, it's going to happen. This truth, this reality of UFOs cannot keep the lid on this. The pot is already boiling over. No matter how many people are sitting on the lid is already lifting, and the pot is boiling over. They can't stop this. I don't understand the government's or the military's arrogance and odd behavior in thinking that they can keep this covered up forever. I just don't see that. And so, who knows? I mean, I can't wait for the day. Maybe then my research will completely stop, because what's the point of researching something if all of a sudden you get everything answered, all your questions answered, how many are coming here? What's their reason for coming here? But we could probably talk about like my personal beliefs on why they're here and what the abduction phenomena means to me. I've come to understand to believe that first of all, one or two of these races have had their hands in our creation, and the abductions is a way by which they are monitoring us as we continue to develop. Mm-hmm. Pure and simple. They're not here to invade us. They're not here to the hybridization. That's because they are a dying race, and they have to, at any cost, they have to match up with other compatible bipeds, and even if they lose purity of the race, they want to continue themselves. So if they have to mix with different breeds of bipedal creatures, that's what they'll do, and they seem to have the technology and the ability to do that. We are not at that stage yet. We talk about cloning this, doing that, but we're basically barely making it over the bars of the crib, ufologically speaking. I mean, making it to space and all that. We're barely making it out of the crib, and the military makes you want to believe that we've got this, we've done that, we can do this, we can do that. Well, hopefully there's universal laws that put in place that will prevent us hostiles from doing things that we think we can do when, there's probably somebody even stronger and more superior to us out there that will say, whoa, you can only do this and you can only do that. We're not going to allow you to do a whole lot. Look look what we've done to this planet. If it's not a cesspool of pollution and destitution and famine and irradiated soil, I mean, what else would you call it? So there's so many implications to the UFO phenomenon. I mean, I looked at UFOs thinking I was just going to look at UFOs. I never knew I was going to become an activist, an environmentalist, an archivist, historian of a type. It's like studying. We're basically studying vehicles manned by other creatures from other planets. It's kind of funny when you really think about it. It would be like UFOs, like the UFO occupants studying us and our vehicles and how we function. It's kind of weird when you really think about it, and funny, but it would be such an awakening for anybody to even delve into this as deeply as I have and other researchers have.
Why do you think there is still, with all this evidence out there, the major cover-up continues? Why do you think that the U.S. seems to be leading the way in regards to the lack of disclosure or the lack of proof being brought forward? We've seen other countries do it. We've seen countries in Europe. We've seen countries in South America come out with what they know about UFOs. Yet that gets swept under the rug here in North America, and for the most part Europe as well. And we're sitting here dealing with this mystery that everyone, the majority of the population now in North America, believes UFOs exist, but nobody ever comes out and says what they know.
I think the only reason, I think, and I'm willing to state this right now, the only reason why there's disinformation and cover up is because if they've managed to back engineer any part of any particular UFO and they're able to understand how it works, that's the kind of technology that they do not want to fall in other people's hands. And so if they're able to do something that beforehand they could not, it would be reason enough to keep everything covered up and try to dismiss the reality of UFOs as a flight of fancy. And I personally don't even know to what extent they've managed to back engineer. If you listen to Bob Lazar, and I believe Bob Lazar, I believe his story thoroughly. I believe that when he walked in there, he says they weren't further along with the research, and I guess they needed somebody from the outside. David Adair said the same thing. This was a young rocket expert at a young age who was invited to Area 51, and he discovered that the technology is symbiotic. You have to have a hands-on. Like the beings themselves are part of the wiring for the functioning of the ships. Human beings can't do that. You know, that's a step of evolution we haven't even reached. So that alone tells me that they're not possibly as further along as they would like us to believe they are. And sadly enough, in the States, because they've been dummied down so much, the people there believe that their military is almighty and are able to do an awful lot of amazing things that they may not be able to, you know, and to raise themselves at the same equal level as an alien being who's possibly been around for millions of years in existence, you know. Some of the races have been reported to claim that their life expectancy is between 350 to 400 Earth years. That's an awful lot more years on us. We're lucky if we can live up to 100 years and get to see what you can experience within your lifetime. So I don't claim to know everything that the military has or has figured out or has back engineered, but I'll be damned if I ever fall into the trap of believing that it's all them and there's nothing else out there coming here to do all these things and fly over our cars and scare the shit out of the occupants of the vehicle on the road, or, you know, and I've heard stories like that many times over. So it's going to come to a front. It definitely will come out one day, and my website and other people's websites is a way by which to prepare the people for the reality, so that when it happens to them, their first sighting, their first encounter, it won't be as shocking, hopefully, you know, not causing a heart attack or something, because I know people that I work with, they would die instantly if something were to happen to them because they haven't been prepped for this stuff at all. And they wouldn't even look at it. It doesn't matter. You know, they can list all the stats reports off of a baseball game or a hockey game and say this manager's name and this is who's been traded for this other player. They can say all that, but they don't know anything about what I've been researching, and yet they call me crazy, or they say, "Oh yeah, well, it's just, you know, you're smoking something or whatever." You know, so it's a sad state of affairs, but and I may not be around for the day when the full disclosure takes place, but it's not going to come from the government. It'll have to be from their actual presence on this planet, like visibly seen by millions of people. Like Phoenix, Arizona was only 10,000 people witnessed the several sightings that took place there. Well, I'm waiting for the next Phoenix, Arizona, and hopefully the next one will include or involve millions of eyewitnesses that you won't be able to dismiss. Well, I still don't believe that they've fully dismissed all those Arizonians that actually saw those large boomerang-shaped objects, or the ones that were seen in the Hudson Valley in the 80s.
Well, the former governor who made fun of that sighting in a press conference the next day has actually come out and said he saw it. He saw the UFO over the Phoenix Lights. Hold on. Trying to hold in a sneeze here. I apologize. But he came out and said afterwards it took him years. You know, maybe he's just trying to get back in the public eye one way or another, but saying that, you know, he felt bad that he had to do what he had to do. I think he was shut up personally. Fylth Symington is his name. Thank you, Eric Markham. And you feel bad for him because here's a gentleman who runs the state. He could have, that Phoenix Lights incident in 97, March 13th, it should have, broken open the whole disclosure movement. And yet, the government doesn't say anything. Their own governor, Mr. Symington, made fun of their own citizens. He walked away with egg on his face over that incident. And I think that's the fear that anybody else has about coming out if they're a government official.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a big risky step to take in admitting that you've seen something. But he's not the first. Ronald Reagan had a sighting when he was governor of California, I believe. He directed, I believe I have a clipping about that too, a news clipping, where he directed his pilot to follow this particular UFO that had just gone right by their plane. There was also
Jimmy Carter.
Kucinich. Jimmy Carter had seen one in 1969 while governor of Georgia, and there's been a few other ones. There's been Senator Russell, who was traveling through Russia on a train, and he witnessed a UFO sighting out there in the late 40s, I believe. Another first for any website is I've listed all the politicians, and the politicians, or at least politicians in UFOs, created a page called Cops and Saucers, which involve police officers in UFOs. And you see the politicians, you look at the politicians one, it's pretty interesting to see that Senator Russell's story is on there. I also put down scientists in UFOs. People are kind of adamant to say, well, there's no way that some of the paperclip scientists ever made it to Roswell or whatever. But back in the day, they thought flying saucers ran on nuclear power. And who were the nuclear authorities of the day? It was Edward Teller, Robert Oppenheimer. Einstein wasn't so curious about flying saucers, but he'd heard about them. You should look towards those people and say, well, if there's nothing to this, they wouldn't have looked into it or been called in on a case, to give their opinion. And they were the experts of the day, with the government acting the way it is and having Symington act the way he did, maybe his hand was forced to do that, but I'm glad that he came out and confessed that he had seen the object. You need more people with guts like that to come out and tell their story. And any time somebody's collecting UFO reports, we have to remember also that we're probably getting only 10% of the reports. There's probably 90% of UFO sighting reports that go unreported because of the fear factor, or you're told you're crazy, or if you're a government official or a psychiatrist or whatever, you don't want to be looked down upon as being crazy by your peers if you all of a sudden come out and admit that you've had an encounter of some type.
And that's a chance that everybody has to take.
Yeah.
But I'll give you another example. I know in British Columbia here, before I ever thought of putting this show together, Michel, I filed a couple of reports with UFO BC. 3 of them, to be exact. I got 1 phone call.
Wow.
So at what point is it the fact that maybe it's not just the government's fault, but it's the fact that the people who are supposed to be researching this are just as aloof and not following up their duty that they proclaim online?
Yeah. I suppose in my own way, I guess I've become, an armchair researcher. But the thing is, it's like, running an archive is different. I still, on occasion, will go and talk to witnesses, and when you meet them in person, it's when you realize that, yeah, they've really seen something, because it changes them. It changes you forever. Once those floodgates open, you can't shut them. You see the glaze in their eyes and see the way they tremble. Sometimes when you tell their story, you know they've seen something. And I've seen that reaction so many times that I can tell when somebody's trying to fool me. I've had phone calls by kids who would crack a joke or whatever, and I saw it like a mile coming, and I would hang up right away. Or, well, for kids, I wouldn't hang up right away, but I would tell them, says, look into this stuff, because it's not all fun and jokes. Some people have been terrified from this, and in the abduction phenomena, people have been tipped into suicide because they just can't handle having another recurring encounter. So it's not fun and games. It really isn't. But at the same time, it's super fascinating. It's such an eye opener. And
Michel, I'm going to cut you off right there. We're going to go to a quick break here.
Okay.
I apologize. Michel Deschamps is our guest tonight. He's a Canadian ufologist. His website, nofors.com. That's NOUFORS.com. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. We'll be back right after this.
Looking for news beyond the mainstream news? Head to spacedoutradio.com and check out the SOR Spacewire. This is Spaced Out Radio's Eric Markham, news director for the SOR Spacewire. Daily, I will bring you intriguing stories and outlandish reports from what's going on around the world. UFO sightings, paranormal activity, conspiracies, alternative health, and so much more. And if you have news, email me at news@spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with UFOcop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com.
Have you had an experience you can't explain? Had a run-in with ghosts, maybe Bigfoot, or seen lights in the sky? Hi, I'm Mike Schmidt from the SOR Sightlines. I'm here to investigate your sighting. Head to spacedoutradio.com and fill out a report on the Sightlines. All your information is 100% confidential, and I will help you figure out what you've been seeing. File your report, and let's find out the answers together.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
From British Columbia to Northern California, Pacific North Weird has Cascadia covered. Check out our feature videos at spacedoutradio.com, where I, Vincent Zunza, and my super sleuth partner Alexandra Sullivan track down the weird and strange stories from around the Pacific Northwest. From Bigfoot to Mel's Hole and everything in between. This is what makes life exciting. So why report the normal when we can report the Pacific North Weird? right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Oh, there's only one way to rock. Loud and proud. In high definition. Radio 702 rocks. Las Vegas.
Have you ever had an extraterrestrial experience? One you just couldn't explain? Well, maybe I can help. Hello, I am Samantha Mullet. On the second Tuesday of each month, I will join Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio to bring a human aspect to ET contact. It's something I've lived with my entire life, and I'd love to help you understand. Let's share our experiences. The ET Experience, the second Tuesday of each month, only on Spaced Out Radio.
Hi there, this is Jolene with Reveal Reiki and Readings, and I want you to relax. Let me help you chill out and get in touch with your body, mind, and soul. In this busy world, sometimes we need to let go, and this is where I can help. Visit my website, rivuletrr.wix.com/rivuletrr&r.
Every Saturday and Sunday night, as Dave Scott wanders aimlessly in the wilderness, you can come hang out with me, James Tyson, in Spaced Out Weekend. We're starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. I'll take you along as we talk with some of the best experts in their fields. SpacedOutRadio.com is the place to find us. So sit down, relax, put your feet up. Enjoy the topics like the paranormal, supernatural, intuitiveness, and so much more. Hope to see you there.
Hi there, this is your psychic medium, Joanna, and I would love it if you would join us every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. With host James Tyson, we'll bring you personal psychic messages on two mediums and a large. Questions about love, life, career changes. We would love it if you would come and join us live. Call in and listen in for the experience. Allow us to open the doors to your other side. Two mediums and a large, heard only on Spaced Out Weekend at spacedoutradio.com.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
Do you have a topic or a guest that you'd like to hear on Spaced Out Radio? Let us know at spacedoutradio.com, where you can sign up to become a Space Traveler member today. Or you can find us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on our Facebook page, Spaced Out Radio Show. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you along for the ride. Tomorrow night, Samantha Mowat, the ET Experience, joins us live as she is on holidays in Scotland. But she is still going to join us live tomorrow night on this show, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. Hope you're all here at spacedoutradio.com, because Samantha joins us the second Tuesday of every month. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight, and it is impossible. I'm going to butcher this so bad. I knew it right off the bat. Heterocthenus. I have no idea what it means. Bill does this little game every night with the SOR password to try and stump me. And I'm not a fan of it. I'm not a fan. Yet he does it night after night. I'm not even going to say it. I'll say it in the next hour. What the hell? Hey, if you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do so at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like. Spaced Out Radio Show on Instagram. I can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. And our website is spacedoutradio.com. You can also tune us in on TuneIn, as well as download this podcast on iTunes, literally about 10 minutes after the show is done. On our website, you could sign up for the SOR Space Travelers Club. It's only $5 a month. With that, you get access to private group interviews. Your name gets put into monthly prize draws. You get access to special posting sections on our website, and so much more. Hey, we're going to give you a hell of a lot more than just access to our archives. You can also read up on our latest blogs. Check out the SOR Spacewire by Eric Markham. And if you've had a sighting and you would like someone to investigate it, doesn't matter if it's Bigfoot, paranormal, UFOs, extraterrestrials, garden gnomes moving, fill out an SOR Sightlines report. Our investigator, our chief investigator, Mike Schmidt, will get a hold of you, and he will get back to you with a report. Everything is 100% confidential. So after I butchered that password once again, thank you, Bill Cardwell, we're going to bring in Michel Deschamps from newfors.com. He's a Canadian ufologist. He works specifically on trying to figure out what the hell is going on in the skies above. Michel, welcome back.
Thanks, Dave. I'm glad. I'm happy to be back.
I'm still a little miffed that Bill Cardwell on Canadian Thanksgiving here. We're supposed, because he's a Maple Leafs fan, and I know you don't do hockey, but you know as well as I do.
Yeah.
Even if you don't do hockey in this country, there's either two people in this country. There's the ones who love the Leafs and the ones who don't. And it tells you a lot. If for setting a password like that, it really does. So that's all I'm going to say about that. By the way, you also stated that a lot of people like sports statistics, and forget about ufology. I am one of the few who could do both, my friend. I can quote the stats and ufology at the same time. So I'm going to take a little round of applause for that from me. So thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Anyways, I am going to move on with you here. For the next few minutes, I want to talk about Canada's role in ufology. We have some very talented people across our great land who have studied this field, from Charles Lamoureux in Vancouver to Grant Cameron to Chris Rutkowski to Stanton Friedman, who's a Canadian citizen living in Nova Scotia, to yourself. What is Canada's role in the field of ufology and disclosure, do you think?
Oh, boy. I can only speak for myself, and, actually, I inadvertently found out that Henry McKay was actually a leading Canadian authority on physical landing trace cases. His niece, Michelle McKay, who's a professional ghost hunter, paranormal investigator, also became a UFO researcher, investigator because of him, because he was more of a dad to her than her father, I guess. Or he had fascinating stories that she enjoyed, and she had fascinating stories that he enjoyed. But actually, we're supposed to collaborate apparently on rehashing or reinvestigating a famous landing case on the Quebec side, on a place called Chapeau, which is the French word for hat, on this small island across the border from Pembroke, Ontario. In 1969, there was this circular formation that was found, large donut shape formation next to a tree. And I was there. I was at that site, passing through to go to Gatineau, where my parents now live. Everybody packed up except me. I stayed behind because of my research primarily, and the rest of the family moved back to Quebec. And on the way to Gatineau, we stopped at Chapeau and tried to locate this this famous, one of the many famous landing sites. Could never find it. But turns out that I know a Mr. Dominic Demers, who's a photographer, him and his wife, and Dominic was actually born in that area. And he remembers the case very, very well. So he may be, and he happens to be a cameraman who used to work for our local TV station for many years, and now does freelance for TV Ontario and the French TV Ontario. He wants to tag along one day to just go drive down there and see if we can locate the site ourselves. So just want to see if there's any traces left. Sometimes at these sites, the radiation or whatever causes the soil to be dehydrated, the plants won't grow for many years. So I'm kind of wondering if that circle is there. So Michelle McKay asked me if I wanted to tag along with her, And that's how I found out who she was. That actually I had met her uncle. Actually, I saw him in person, I believe, just before he passed away in 2005. But before that, I actually received letters from him. He was the first Canadian to actually give a course on UFOs for credit, and did a lot for ufology. Chris Rutkowski, being a skeptic, in this particular case, it's a good thing because he has to separate the wheat from the chaff when it comes to UFO reports, and he puts out the annual survey of the preceding year's sighting reports, which I think we're the only country to do that. There may be some other countries that are following suit, but I'm not aware of that at the moment. Grant Cameron has a website called presidentialufo.com, basically dealing with presidents and what they know and what they knew about UFOs. In Quebec, I know Marc Saint-Germain, who's part of member of MUFON, and Yann Vadnais, who is part of GARPA, another ufological group in Quebec. There's also the AQU, Association Québécoise UFOlogy. I've actually translated from French to English an article about a report, a humanoid case actually, that took place in 1998 near Montreal at a place called Grand Mare, Quebec, so that English Canada could find out about this report, about this encounter with two occupants. So I guess we each do our bit in collating and gathering all this information of what's going on across the country. But like I said before, if we're getting only 10% of the reports, only 10% of the reports get reported publicly, then there's 90% that go unreported because of the fear factor, the ridicule factor, and whatever else. Especially professionals won't report a sighting because they're in a professional field and they don't want to, you feel kind of icky after reporting something and you go back to work the next day, and if you haven't done that yourself for many years like I have, I couldn't care less what people think of me. If I'd lived my life based on what other people thought, I don't think I'd be doing what I do. I love public speaking. I don't have a chance to do it that often now, but I plan to get back into it because it's a passion of mine. It's probably my biggest passion. Also had to make a lot of sacrifices. Never married, don't have kids. Because it's a huge bubble around myself, and there's very little room for anything else other than my full-time job at Walmart. And so it takes a toll. It does take a toll. It takes a toll on you, and you do make a lot of sacrifices, but hopefully in the end, it'll be all worth it. And I think that all us researchers in Canada, as well as elsewhere around the world, whether we're attempting to put the states to shame or not, we're putting out our data. We're informing people on what's been happening worldwide, not just locally. And it's an important mission. It's a mission or a destiny or a passion that just drives you. No matter what the pitfalls are, you get up and you go. You just keep on going, and until there's nothing else to look at,
There has been numerous sightings across Canada of a large extent. Yet, in some way across this country, we've swept them under the rug. The biggest being Shag Harbor in 1967, October 3rd, in Nova Scotia, where a large UFO crashed into the Shag Harbor Bay. And believe it or not, they sent divers down there, and they said that they actually saw extraterrestrials working on that craft underwater. The RCMP were all over the place, the military was there, and then poof, ship took off and just disappeared, like nothing had ever happened. That was our Roswell. Fast forward to just a year ago, when there was a lot of hype that a UFO had crashed into Lake Winnipeg in Manitoba. The military went scurrying there. Chris Rutkowski doesn't believe it was a UFO. Grant Cameron doesn't believe it was a UFO. Yet a lot of people do believe that the military just doesn't go to that area for training in the middle of dead winter. What's your thoughts?
Well, I don't believe it's a real UFO either, because I spoke to, I didn't get a chance to speak to anybody there of the First Nation, but I have a friend of mine who's an abductee, and she's First Nation, and there'd be no bones about it. She would come right out and tell me through contacts and stuff whether or not there had been something there. And as far as we know, I don't think it was real. The pictures we saw were CGI'd into the the military will do all kinds of maneuvers, winter training, survival stuff, mock airplane crashes. Who knows what it was? There's other cases where it has been very, very weird on how many military would be in one particular town. Something happened in Blind River, where for almost 2 weeks the military were there for this mock exercise about a collision between a regular vehicle and a tanker truck carrying some kind of PCBs or something. And as it turns out, they were using some kind of a sonar device to pierce through the ice on a frozen lake because something had fallen in. And I found it curious, and my contact at Mississauga First Nation found it curious that the hotels were all booked and the military were there for 2 weeks, and after everything was done, they just packed up and left, and nothing was said or investigated as to why the military was there. Now, that was something pretty weird. And Blind River, I need to mention this. When I met my friend there in 1997, we went there investigating her abduction reports, and we had 2 sightings that very same night. And ever since then, I turned to my buddy Todd and I says, listen, whenever she says anything to us, we're going to believe her hands down, because we were there. We had 2 sightings. And at first, I couldn't figure out why there would be sightings there. But then, as it turns out, there's a nuclear refinery plant just across the road. It used to be called the El Dorado Nuclear Refinery, but now it's called Systems Management Environmental or something, like a name that you wouldn't even suspect had anything to do with nuclear. And we in the ufological world know that there's been a long association with UFOs and anything nuclear. So that would explain a lot of why the sightings in and around Blind River. But the other surprising fact that I found out was that the consultant to Project Blue Book, Jalen Hynek, actually had a camp there, and it's still there. And I would have thought, well, okay, he's an American. Couldn't there be any other nice places in the States where he could have had his camp? Why would he have his camp at Lake DeBorn, which is only 15 kilometers north of Blind River? As it turns out, he apparently coined the place as one of the hotspots, prime hotspots of UFO sightings in Ontario. And last year or the year before, I happened to be in Blind River visiting my friend, and she told me, let's go to the local art gallery, because the curator of the art gallery actually knows the Hynek family, has known them for many years, and I want to try to see if I can go to that camp to meet the sons of Jalen Hynek. I don't know if it's a research facility or if it's an actual camp, but we were in the art gallery, which is no bigger than 20 feet by 20 feet, small place. And just as I mentioned that we were looking to find out if we could meet the Hynek family, he turns around and says, oh, by the way, Jalen Hynek's daughter is here. And there she was. So I got to meet Roxanne. Anyways, I have a picture. We took a selfie, and she came all the way from Boston, Massachusetts, in this art gallery. It's a small place, and I thought, well, and she explained how she misses her dad, and we all know about the big fiasco, and he coined the term swamp gas, and for many years after that, after he had been gone from skeptic to believer, he regretted ever saying that about the Michigan sightings, the Dexter, Michigan sightings in 1966, or Hillsdale, Michigan. So Blind River is a good primary spot. And while I was there, I also walked away with Bigfoot reports. So I says, holy shit, the big guy is not just out west in the Rockies. He's all over the map. So, and there's been this long association, too, with UFO sightings at general areas where Bigfoot had also been seen. So for many, many years, some people thought maybe there was an association between the two. Maybe Bigfoot was a UFO pilot or something that was let go by the occupants of the UFO to see if it could proliferate and survive. I basically personally think it's something that branched off of us, or we branched off of it over time. But all these encounters, so Blind River is fascinating. Being here in Sudbury is fascinating. And I've heard of some of the encounters and the happenings in BC. The super large UFO that was seen in the Yukon in 1996, December 11th. And Shag Harbor, well, that's one. I've heard of many cases where two saucers were actually seen. One was actually assisting the other, which seemed to be in trouble. Well, I suspect the same thing happened to the one and only landing case that I investigated on Manitoulin Island in the Great Lakes, where two objects landed side by side. And I tend to think that maybe one was in mechanical difficulty and a second one came down to assist it. So I'm not so surprised to hear about Shag Harbor having been the site of two objects being seen by scuba divers. And with the thick yellow foam at the surface, which is a byproduct of whatever energy field is around the craft and caused a chemical reaction with the water, with making contact with salt water and evidence that's as fleeting as angel hair was. Angel hair was a byproduct of UFOs in the 50s and 60s, and again, it couldn't be contained. It would dissipate fairly rapidly after you'd bottle it up in a pill bottle or something. So there's a lot of evidence, a lot of cases in Canada that are just fascinating, and they'll go down in the history books as long as people are willing to look at it that way, as being historical fact and not fiction.
And I think that's the problem, is everybody, when they look at a crash, they think of Roswell. They don't look into their own backyards. And yet there isn't a lot of information found around, besides maybe, the local bookstore, that not the chain, but the bookstore, where they may carry someone's book on a smaller author's book or something along those lines. So I guess what I'm saying is, how are people up here supposed to know about what is happening in Canadian ufology if we're not given any information and the public really doesn't talk about it?
Yeah, the public, the thing is that you kind of open the door for them. I found over time that if you stay quiet, everybody stays quiet. But as soon as you mention something, then people will overhear. It's gotten better. I remember days when, way before, years ago, when I used to be, whether it's a coffee shop, Tim Hortons or whatever, I'd be whispering across the table talking to my friends. But now, as soon as you talk a little bit louder and people overhear your conversation, they're actually willing to engage you and talk more than they would have done like 10, 20 years ago. It's like a door opening, and then people you might have 50 people on the same street that have seen something. They won't say a damn word, but then as soon as somebody speaks up, then all the other witnesses seem to come out of the woodwork, and then the one single person who initially came out doesn't feel as bad or isolated anymore, because they realize that they're not alone in having seen something. And that's an important thing to have happen more often. A lot of people internalize or personalize their sighting just like they would for a religious experience, that it was meant for them. And I keep telling them, say, well, you may not be aware that there may be other witnesses that have seen the same thing as you have. And it's important to speak out about it, because you don't want anybody to feel like they're going crazy or that this is nonsensical and doesn't make sense, doesn't belong here, or it's all fake. And so it's part of our responsibility as UFO researchers to educate as well as collect the information. You use it to educate people. If you can go speak in schools, try to reach. In my particular case, I tried to go online on as many online radio programs as I can. Not just to boast about my website, because I see a lot of websites and I see a lot of stuff that's non-verified. I try to stick with the facts. There's a few things on there that people may not agree with, but I don't even have a speculations page. I have a page or an explanation on how this has affected my religious beliefs, how it's changed me over time, what got me involved in the space. Well, simply because I remember seeing the live First Man on the Moon, the live footage on TV in 1969, July 21st. And that stuck with me. And anybody saying that we never went and it was all faked, they're full of BS. On my website, I've actually placed two interviews or self-interviews with a filmmaker who actually he explains in a filmmaker's way on how they could not have faked the footage back then, because they had no high-speed cameras in the late 60s. That it would have been cheaper to send people to the moon. And one of our greatest heroes, my greatest heroes, was Dr. Edgar Mitchell, who passed away recently. My friend, one of my buddies today just told me that some letter was leaked about him contacting Podesta about aliens not wanting and will not allow any of our violence to go out in space, whether we use nuclear weapons or something, and somehow they'll intercede. I'm hoping this will happen. I've always kind of believed that, or hoped there'd be some kind of universal justice that sort of steps in and say, okay, we're quarantined, or we're limited to do this or limited to do that. But that's them. For us researchers, we're not limited to anything. We should at any cost use our information that we've gathered and educate people so that we can bring them all on the same page, and using facts more than just supposition or speculation. And tell them that it's okay to report these things openly. It's okay to talk about it. Because otherwise, you're just you're doing exactly what the military wants you to do, which is to stay quiet and help with the cover up. Inadvertently helping with the cover up by just staying quiet. And so it's not always easy to have people come out and report their sighting. I mean, it's like twisting somebody's arm, and it shouldn't be that way. It's funny how people are so reluctant to report the UFO sightings, but yet they talk about Jesus as if they know him. Religion is like end all be all kind of situation. And yet, you know what? I tell them, I don't even have a single photograph of Jesus walking anywhere, but I have photographs of UFOs. I have more physical evidence for UFOs than I do of Jesus. But yet, I have my own personal belief. I side with the aliens. I look at the entire universe as a supreme being. And so it changes you on all sides, and you have to sort of, maybe tuck away some of that personal belief, but you have to use your information to educate people. It's the only way that we can, and I think I've mentioned this before, a civilization cannot survive divided. We survive as a whole. We continue as a whole. And if we want to see any time past the 21st century, we have to band together and not let the military or the powers that be divide us and tell us that this is not so, and that what they say goes. You have to go against the grain sometimes and do what's best for mankind, and never mind what they're telling you to do. Like, stay dummied down, don't talk about it, look the other way. That's basically how I feel.
I have a couple questions coming in for you from the Space Out Radio chat rooms. This one from John. He is saying, Dave, can you please ask Michael, which is you, or Michel, which is you?
Yeah.
Have you ever met or interviewed anyone who claimed to be an extraterrestrial?
No.
Would you like to?
You know what? I've asked this question to my friends. I said I don't even know what to look for. Well, I guess I'm pretty observant. I would look for, if I were to meet somebody who would say that they're an alien being, I would hope to know that there's a difference, like whether they have fingerprints or not, whether they have vertical slits in their eyes, their pupils are vertical slits, some oddity in the way they speak, like monotone, or like what's been reported with the Men in Black, the real Men in Black, not like the ones from the movies. I don't know how I would feel to encounter, and it's funny because I know people who've actually seen beings, like my friend from Inco. He has had 2 sightings of UFO occupants. My friend from Blind River, well, she's an abductee, so she's had experiences there. But myself, I don't know how I would react. My gut instinct and my sixth sense would probably tell me right off the bat that there's something odd about this particular person if I were to meet one, but I'm not sure how I would react. It'd be an interesting thing because I've never seen, in any of the sightings I've had, I've never seen the occupants ever. But I've been wondering about that, like how would I react if I saw that? Because it's definitely one step beyond from just seeing their vehicles.
The next question coming out of the SOR Space Travelers Club is, have you ever received any reports or done any investigation into black-eyed kids and their relation to UFOs?
No, I've heard some of the papers that were written about them. I'm still not sure if they're even related to UFOs. Like, there's so many things. There's so many phenomena. The ghosts, like you've got ghosts, you've got demons. The most interesting story recently is I was at my friend's place and we were going for a walk. We were going for supper. He was treating me to supper because he was celebrating the fact that he was debt free. And then his neighbor walked out, beautiful, beautiful blonde lady. And she says, "Are you the owner of the car with the license plate and UFO man and the alien sign on the side?" I said, "Yeah." And she blurted out 3 words that made my friend turn tail. "Are you saved?" She was a Christian, and she basically told me that the aliens are actually demons, and that God or Jesus is the only way to the truth and all that. And I basically tried to tell her, I says, no, you know what? Demons are a different entity than aliens altogether, just as ghosts are, just as Bigfoot is. And because there's many realms, many existences, many dimensions. And somebody like that, it just wouldn't understand, and they just can't accept that. So they're stuck in their little tiny box. To go back to that, the black-eyed kids, I don't think they're UFO related, although there's a lot of odd things going on this planet. Like, this planet is like almost like magical. We had something like the Bermuda Triangle that was working for a while, where planes would disappear and boats would disappear, never to be found. You've got the Great Lakes Triangle. You have the Cadborosaurus, off the coast of Vancouver. sea serpents, Loch Ness, the Ogopogo. I mean, there's tons of stuff we don't know anything about, and we don't know where they originate from or if they're all indigenous to this planet. Some stuff freaked me out more than others. Like I tell people, don't play with Ouija boards because it's a portal to, I don't know how it works, but it works. Whether you create a Ouija board out of paper or it's made out of wood, you don't play with those things because this is something that will unleash something that you will not be able to get rid of. Ghosts are different. I believe they're people that die a tragic death of some kind and they have unfinished business and are stuck here. Black-eyed kids, I don't know what the hell they are, but it's pretty creepy. And I don't personally think they're related to UFOs. They seem too ominous for that even. Because what I get from UFO occupants is that the great majority of them are all benevolent. If there was any evilness in any of them, we would have been done over many years ago. Whether they have the ability to time travel back to a time when we're less weaponized than now, or even now, I don't think we'd stand a chance, and we would have been obliterated already if that was their purpose. So I don't think that's them. I don't think they're part of the ufological circle. So I can't explain what the black-eyed kids are. It's very terrifying almost. It's almost like they're linked somehow to the demonic side of things. From the reports I've read.
I brought a theory up to Victor Vigiani in regards to Canadian ufology, and he was like, where did you come up with that? And I said, doing this show. That theory is, we here up in Canada, and I have no scientific background behind this, we seem to have a lot more benevolent type encounters. Yet, if you cross the border into the United States, the majority of extraterrestrial encounters seem to be of some sort of malevolency. We all know Whitley Strieber's stories. We all see how it's played out in Hollywood. We all seen South Park episode where, it's supposed to be after Whitley getting the anal probe. Anyways, the whole thing that I'm trying to say here is, do you think that there is something to do with the fact that maybe, just maybe, Eisenhower did cut that deal, which was humans for technology, and that's the reason why Americans seem to be having a lot more negative experiences compared to, say, a country like Canada, where the experiences seem to be more benevolent than of anything negative?
Well, if there was a deal that was struck, I think the deal was broken because on the part of the aliens, I think that it's a matter of survivability, and they could circumvent any kind of security we would have anyway. So if they were to continue abducting, what broke the deal was the fact that they were abducting a lot more people than they were told, quote unquote, to abduct. Well, for whatever program this is, this abduction phenomenon, apparently our side didn't really like what we saw or what was being reported. The occupants in the States, the occupant reports in the States are not as terrifying as the ones in South America, for instance. In Brazil, first of all, it seems to me that the alien factions, there's about 4 or 5 of them, if you want to generalize things and split it up, they seem to have divvied up the planet amongst themselves. You've got the Nordic people, were the most human-looking ones that seem to be concentrating themselves on the European area. You've got the reptilians that are down, not in the White House like some people I know would claim that the reptilians are running the White House. No, the reptilians are down in Brazil, and they're very aggressive. Very aggressive reports of reptilians in some of the encounters in the States. But in Brazil, there's been many, many cases where smokers would go outside and light up a cigarette, and the UFOs would swoop down and try to grab them, and they'd be using beam technology. One would be a red beam. It's either red or green. The one beam, whatever color it is, I think it's green, would hold down the person, and the red beam would be lasering through their flesh. There's one particular case where a man melted like a candle right in front of his wife. After many reports like that, people were basically told not to go outside and light up a cigarette because it seems to be attracting the UFOs, and they're swooping down for the kill, so to speak. The little gray entities, which vary in size from 3.5 feet tall to 5 feet tall, they're pretty well seen like all over the States and Canada. More involved in the abduction phenomena than some of the one-timers, as I call them. Like I said, I've separated the aliens on my website by the fact that there's a great majority that were seen that were never seen again. And then on a separate page is where I have the abduction performing ones, or the ones that were involved in a lot of the abductions that may be in charge of the group or their whole procedure, or they're just there to observe. You have the reptilian ones, you have the praying mantis ones, you have the you have some that look like little old men. There's a whole bunch. It's almost like a zoo at times, because you have more of them look more like insectoid than anything else. And what does a primate have in common with an insect? No more so than with a reptilian. We'd probably have something more in common, or being able to be more approachable if we look similar, like the Nordics, who are, mostly more muscular than us, a little slightly taller, or very much taller, and more muscular in appearance. I think that somehow amongst themselves they've divvied up the planet, and you have some cases that are very, very terrifying initially. But that's because of lack of education. If we had been told from the get-go that beings were coming here and abducting people, and it was just a tweaking, like there's an hybridization program going on as well. Like I said before, my personal belief is that some of them are on the brink of extinction, and they're doing anything they can to prolong their lifespan, even if they have to mix their genes with something else. And the other side is beings that are just they're just here they're tweaking us over time. They've had a hand in our creation, and it's a way by which they monitor us. Sometimes I wish they if they had the technology to do that, remove our bad traits, leaving us completely benevolent, and giving us more of a nurturing attitude towards the planet than the way it's been. I still personally think if you put the aliens together with the humans, I think we're the most violent species there ever was. Because we've done how many millions of people have we killed during World War II, and how many murders take place every year? How many assaults, sexual or otherwise, take place? Besides the fact that we're raping the earth for every natural resources and not replenishing it. We seem to be going for gasoline and oil as if the earth could limitless, produce the endlessly the supply, just like we reproduce blood when we get a transfusion, blood work done on us, whatever. It's all weird and very complex, and I don't claim to know all the answers. It just seems to me that there's 4 or 5 factions that have divided up the planet, and although some encounters seem terrifying, a lot of the times I believe it's because we weren't told that this was going to happen. That this has been happening for many years. I mean, the reports of elves stealing children back in the 1800s is no more different than what's happening in modern day times with these abduction cases. And if it was something really malevolent, I think we'd see a lot more disappearances that we couldn't account for than there have been. But I still think that between them and us, I think humans are the most violent ones, and I'm more afraid of humans than I am of aliens.
Well, let me ask you this then, because I do believe that there are some extraterrestrials out there that are wreaking havoc on people. Why do you think we've never gone back to the moon?
Oh, that's easy. That's because there's a base on the far side of the moon. There's a base that's I think I heard this initially from Robert Dean, Major Robert Dean of NATO, who stated that there's a complex on the other side of the moon that is very, very large. It consists of several buildings that are miles wide, and there's at least 4 different races that are there. I personally believe that's where they took Travis Walton, because travel time, he was only gone for a week, and to travel at the speed that they travel, to even reach 37 light years, it would take 2 weeks or more. If he was gone for 5 days, they couldn't have gone really far, and when he found himself in a hangar where other ships were parked and could see the stars and stuff, I would assume that's where they took him. He obviously wasn't on another ship because, he could have been on another ship that was really large and looked like a hangar that contained several other smaller ships. We were basically warned off. I remember the communications officer, Marie Chadelaine, saying that there's not a single time when the astronauts were not followed to and from the moon by UFOs. And that there's a complex on the far side, which is a perfect, and it's not the only base they have. They have bases off the coast of Russia. They have bases under the oceans off the coast of Catalina Island near California. They're all almost like duck blinds. They're in perfect areas where we can't access, and yet they can keep an eye on us. Younger siblings or younger people who are still, like I said before, we're just basically getting over the bars of the crib, claiming that we're all that and we're ready to explore space and take part in whatever's out there, when I don't think we are, and they know that too, and so these are just duck blinds, places where they can keep an eye on us without alerting us to their presence. So for some reason, the choreography of the moon showing just the one side and never being able to see the backside is perfectly convenient for them to have a base there. And same thing with the oceans. I mean, a submarine will implode at a certain depth, but there's been UFOs that have been tracked on sonar going extremely fast at very, 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 very deep down in as deep as the Mariana Trench, and so they're perfectly camouflaged, perfectly technologically advanced to do stuff like that. And to me, it's just basically keeping an eye on us. Because like I said before, if they wanted to take the planet over, first of all, sometimes I kind of welcome them to take over the planet because we've done a really lousy job at caretaking for this planet. And I'm sure that they have the technology to totally terraform this planet to make it as pristine as it was before man was ever here. So the base is on the moon, and that was enough reason to not go back. Now they said, well, why did we go back an additional 3 times? Well, they had the missions planned. They actually had 7 missions planned, but the ones they did it in a very, very short time and then never went back. And if they claim we're going back now with manned missions, they're lying. They'll only be sending probes. Unless, of course, like Richard Dolan says, there's a breakaway civilization that has technology that they've back engineered from UFOs, and we're exploring space like the TV show Stargate, but not necessarily using a Stargate, and doing stuff like tickling the dragon's belly and hope to God that they don't bring back with them something that's even more violent than whatever's been encountered so far. You know, the arrogance of the military or whatever they have, if there is such a thing as a space team or whatever, they'll be biting off way more than they can chew. And we can't afford to do too much too quickly like that without being prepared or to know what's out there first. And so no wonder we're under quarantine and we're being observed to see what we're going to do next. And Major Robert Dean also said that he personally believes that there is another race that actually will intercede when if too much shit hits the fan. There's one particular race, I don't know which type, but they will step in. And that's another thing too. People claiming to know who's what. They look at a UFO picture and say, okay, this is being piloted by the reptilians, or this is what the reptilians eat, this is what the Nordics eat. I say bullshit on that, because if we knew all the answers to what the name of their species are, what the name of their home planet is, it's all made up. We don't have that information. They're not volunteering that information to us because why should we? We're a superior, we're an inferior life form. We're just starting off in this great journey of doing space travel, and they've been doing it for a very, 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 very long time. And so we may not be ready yet. And so the moon is just a stepping stone, but who knows if we'll really go to Mars or we'll suffer the fate of Phobos 2, which disappeared after it photographed this 15.5-mile long UFO. There's aliens out there that are warding us off. They're out there patrolling and making sure that our brand of hostility doesn't make it out there.
Couple questions.
That's my belief.
Couple questions. We only got about 5 minutes here before we got to go to break, and I think this is an important one from Gail here for her first of two questions. She is asking, Michel, where did you get your details about ET's plans? Didn't you say that you have never met any personally?
Well, I follow what Linda Howe. Linda Howe has talked to a lot of abductees, and abductees have said, I could read off one of the information where it says that they've had to. I'll have to find the notes, I guess. But the one particular abductee came back with information she was given about how the species had to go out and seek out compatible bipeds with which to match genes, because they were either sickly or they had gone through nuclear wars of their own, I guess, or something that made them realize that they could no longer survive or sustain themselves the way they were going. So they've had to go outside of their species and try to see if they could find compatibility with other bipedal creatures to better themselves genetically and fix whatever problem they may have health-wise. So I've read reports, like I said, abductees. I would trust more of the information coming out from an abductee than somebody else who claims to know a lot when they don't know anything at all. I've been led by the nose before by somebody who claimed to know a lot, and I found out that he knew absolutely nothing, and that I could stand on my own 2 feet and do my own research myself. With the alien information, I mean, there's very little. I have a collection of alien figurines that I bought from Florida, and they come with a collection card, and it basically gives the basic stats like their height, whether they have vertical slits for eyes or whatever. Turns out that most of the species are all telepathic, which is another level of development that we haven't quite successfully attained yet, which is why they're able to speak to you telepathically in whatever language you speak. If you're German, they'll speak to you in German. If you're French, they'll speak to you in French. It's basic information that anybody who's willing to do the research will find out about some of these species, but the multitude of other species we know nothing about. But because of their appearances, sometimes it looks more like a zoo, because some of them look like like frogs or lizards or praying mantises.
Gail's second question is, where did you find out the information about all the bases on the moon?
Basically from Major Robert Dean, and also there was a code word for when the astronauts made, I think the astronauts from Apollo 13 as well, when they detected something on the moon on the far side, there was a code word. There was Santa Claus and bogey. And that was one of the things that was mentioned when they went around the moon and had to slingshot back to Earth, is they said there is a Santa Claus. And that was one of the tip-offs that there was probably truth to something like having a huge complex on the moon. Plus, there's been some photographs I've seen of something that seems to be doing mining of some type. Some kind of mining on the moon, like super large structures. And Mike Barra talks about structures on the moon as well as the structures on Mars. I know for a fact that NASA has been lying about water on Mars, for instance. I know for a fact that there's an active geyser of water on Mars. And why do I know this? A friend of mine from a neighboring town actually ordered a publication by Vincent DiPietro and Greg Molinar. They were the two discoverers of the original picture of the face on Mars. And they put together this manual of before, during, and after photos of this active geyser on Mars. And so there's been water there all along. But we've been held back in terms of that knowledge, just like I believe we've been held back about the knowledge about these Earth-type planets. I believe they've known about planets for a very long time, but they're just subsequently releasing bit by bit by bit, just so that we can get accustomed to hearing the news that they found another planetary system. You know, how could they be so naive to believe that we're so naive to think that there's no other solar system out there with life forms? Life is just all over the place.
And on that note, we're going to hop out for a break here at the top of the hour. You're listening to Michel Deschamps, UFOs.com. I'm your host, Dave Scott. 1 hour to go right after this.
The SOR Sightlines is a place for you to find answers to your strange experiences. Hi there, this is Mike Schmidt. If you have had an encounter with ghosts, UFOs, Bigfoot, ETs, or anything else that doesn't make sense, head to spacedoutradio.com and file a Sightlines report. All information you give is 100% confidential, and I will personally help you find the answers you need. SOR Sightlines, your answers are a click away.
Greetings and salutations, space travelers, from the Chronicles of the Unknown team.
What is Chronicles of the Unknown? I keep hearing about this thing.
It's a new paranormal reality TV show based right here in beautiful British Columbia, Canada. Follow our team as we uncover claims of activity on the Caribou Gold Rush Trail. You can also follow us here every third Monday, where two members of our team will be available to answer your questions. We'll give you some equipment updates and some of our experiences on the road, right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with UFOcop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
This is your medium, Joanna, from Spaced Out Weekend, 2 mediums and a large. I would love it if you would come and join us with host James Tyson every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. Together, we will take your calls and your questions live. Our goal is to provide you with a positive outlook on deep questions that you may have. Questions regarding love, relationships, money, or whatever else is on your mind. Come and check us out at spacedoutradio.com.
Have you checked out the SOR Spacewire at spacedoutradio.com yet? Every day we post the latest stories regarding the weird, strange, and completely unbelievable. From cryptid and UFO sightings to the conspiracy world, we tackle it all. Hi there, I'm Eric Markham, Spaced Out Radio's news director for the SOR Spacewire. And if you have a story, I want to hear it. Email me at news@spacedoutradio.com.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that will leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Every month on Spaced Out Radio, we look into the deep and dark reports of cryptids roaming around the world with me, Rob Morphy from Cryptopia.us. I would love it if you would join me and host Dave Scott as we delve into the most arcane stories and reports regarding creatures of the unknown. My job is to hunt down the details and bring the evidence forward to you. These aren't your regular Bigfoot stories I'm talking about either. You can find out more about crypto history at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
Would you like to connect with us on Spaced Out Radio? Head to spacedoutradio.com to check out the latest shows, guests, and sponsors. And don't forget to sign up for the Space Travelers Club. You'll find all you need at spacedoutradio.com. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio tonight as we kick off a new week. Happy Thanksgiving to all my Canadian friends and family out there. Good to have you along for the ride. Tomorrow night on the show, all the way from Scotland, Samantha Mowat will be with us. She's interrupting her family vacation to do the ET experience with us tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time. as we get going at spacedoutradio.com. The SOR password for the night, if you're a space traveler, Heterothunkus. I don't even know how to pronounce it. Bill Cardwell always screws me up with this thing. Heterothunus. There, that's the way I'm going to leave it for tonight. I know it's probably wrong, but I'm okay with that. So we'll just keep it at that. Thank you, Bill Cardwell, as he sets a password each and every night on Spaced Out Radio. If you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show, and our website is spacedoutradio.com. You can find us on TuneIn and also catch all of our archives on iTunes as well. If you're not a member of the Space Travelers Club yet, it's only $5 a month. With that, you get your name put into monthly prize draws, access to private group interviews, access to a special section on our website, and so much more. You can also read up on our latest blogs, the SOR Spacewire by our news director, Eric Markham. And if you have had a sighting, doesn't matter what it is, ghosts, Bigfoot, Dogman, extraterrestrials, garden gnomes moving, we want to hear about it. Fill out an SOR Sightlines report on our website. Our lead investigator, Mike Schmidt, will get back to you and file a report. All information is 100% confidential. For the final time tonight, we introduce Michel Deschamps. He's a Canadian ufologist with newforce.com. Michel, welcome back.
Thanks, Dave. I'm glad to be back.
Got a couple questions for you from our audience before we kick things off here. Paul is asking, Michel, do you believe, as a former MUFON investigator, that MUFON has been infiltrated? Many people say their reports seem to go nowhere and their evidence is accidentally lost or misplaced.
Yeah, good question. Actually, infiltrated is it's pretty damn close to what really happened. Robert Bigelow, who used to own, or maybe still owns, Skinwalker Ranch and some aerospace. Actually, he's the only civilian to actually own his own space station. And he was either a member of MUFON or had access to MUFON somehow, and apparently stole or was given several, tons and tons of information. It's almost as if he was on his own mission to discover what was going on, and I think he's almost like on the border of paranoia because he thinks that he's going to be safer if he goes to his own personal space station in the actual realm where the UFOs actually, proliferate, and he thinks that something bad's going to happen to Earth or something. Now, it sucks because that he's done this, because that's when MUFON really looked like it was in total disarray, and there was a lot of changes made to the foundation, I guess, of that group, and a lot of accusations back and forth, and he simply disappeared from sight, I guess. But he's kind of a weird fellow, that guy, because the logo on the side of his building is actually like an alien face. And so there's either he's paranoid about the aliens doing something to the Earth and he's going up to his own personal space station and stay there, or and doing whatever he's going to do with the information he stole or took or was given. I don't know how many years ago that took place. It might have been maybe within the last 5 to 10 years, because I was a member right up till 2009, and then when I tried to renew my subscription, there was a typo in the annual fee for renewing, and at the same time, by then, I was totally disillusioned with the fact that they were sitting on cases, like interesting cases that would have convinced the public that there's something going on. One particular case, for instance, was this fisherman in an aluminum boat, and he had a fish finder and a GPS, and he was abducted and woke up 2 hours later in a different lake with his boat, and the GPS proved that somehow his boat had been floated from one lake to another. Now, evidence like that you can't deny. And that is something that just pisses me off, that they're sitting on this and not telling people or informing people, maybe in other ways than waiting for funding to come through and for them to do a TV show. You know, if you've got enough money, I doubt very much that they have that much money, because it's a UFO group after all. Nobody gets rich off of UFOs, unless you're Bigelow. But they should just have their own production company and produce go independent. You know, just like we have alternative news stations online, which are telling the truth more than the mainstream radio and media. They should do the same and use this information and just run with it and release it to the public. And stop bitching about the fact that nobody's on the same page, or they're not believed, or there's too many skeptics and debunkers out there. Other than that, I think it's been in total disarray ever since, and I don't think the left hand is talking to the right hand, and they're too busy making money. That's another big thing, whether it's Stephen Greer or anybody else making a huge amount of money off this UFO thing, when it should be, the information should be given freely to the earth, to the people of this planet, because for thousands of years we've been asking, one of the questions we've been asking, are we alone? And all those files and data that we've collected, MUFON has collected, could definitely say, no, we're not alone. It never have been. You know, it's like sending us back to the 1300s. You know, I work with a guy who's in charge of us in the back, and he's a flat earther. He believes the earth is flat. But there's people like that, just like 5% of the population doesn't believe we ever sent men to the moon. And that's going to be like that. You can't change that. Well, there's certain things you can change, and that's if you're willing to freely give the information out. And I guess I'm like Robin Hood. I've taken the 10,000 files from the Australian archive and I've placed it on my website. I've taken the FBI documents from their website and I've placed it on my website. And this is long after I've already bought parts of the files from Bruce Maccabee of the Fund for UFO Research. Who knew that years later, those 16 bundles of FBI files would be on the FBI website? Nobody knew. I have the 9 downloads from the UK. So far, I don't believe it's, like I said before, I don't think it's all the total amount of all the documents ever written about UFOs. I think they're keeping the juiciest of the juiciest cases ever on file. You know, radar tracks, UFO crashes, there's obviously documentation on that. There's been reported that at crash sites, there's film crews filming the entire thing. You know, I personally believe the alien autopsy that was aired in 1995 is real. Why? Because I spoke to Katie Frankovich, who was a wildlife photographer. She lived, or she still lives, in South Dade, Florida, and she personally saw 6-fingered aliens through her screen door. And here's a 6-fingered alien laying on a slab on this 1995 film footage. You know, doesn't have a belly button, doesn't have, genitalia. Although the second and third airing of the show, they blurred that area out, and they didn't need to. Because alien beings don't have genitalia. It's never been reported. So there's things that are just too important to just pass by. And you can't sit on information. I'm totally against that. And I'm at a point where I even look at copyright as being synonymous with censorship. So, people are making money off the deal, and it's fine. We all have to survive one way, and this world works, works on money. It rotates. Everything revolves around money. But one day, money will disappear, and we'll have to find a new way to exist. And information and knowledge is the true power. It's not money and corruption and all the bad things that we have to deal with to the present day.
One other question for you from our audience member. This is coming from Michael. He is saying, Michelle, we'd like to hear a little bit more about your personal sightings, and have you ever had visions of a UFO on the ground?
No, I wish I did investigate, like I said, a landing case on Manitoulin Island, but my sightings started at age 9 when I saw, initially it was a metallic sphere. On my website, I have a personal page called Personal Sightings. In the margin, all the most important pages are in the margin. And I have to tell you, my web host passed away in August, so initially the website domain was transferred to Bangladesh. And having so many problems uploading my stuff, the audio files, the videos that I've placed up there, and some of the PDFs, or a lot of the PDF documents, I've recently found somebody more local and on the same continent to manage my web, to manage my domain. So I'd give it for sure another week, and everything should be up and running fine. But the pictures are up there on my personal sightings page of what I saw, the few sightings I could sketch, and then the few photographs I did make off of the videos that I shot. I videotaped one UFO in daytime, and I had made a detailed report of that one. The clouds were at 6,000 feet. This thing doesn't look anything like a plane at 6,000 feet, and I have seen planes because the Sudbury Airport is not too far from where I lived then. Now I actually live in the city of Sudbury. Before, I lived 20 miles north of here. The nighttime sighting, this object, which looked like the comet Hale-Bopp, but orange in color with an orange halo, actually flew between the Jupiter and the moon and just quickly disappeared behind the leaves of the neighbor's tree, which is, again, you could hear me sigh on the video because it's out of frustration, because the sightings were seconds in duration, and it's just frustrating. You don't expect to see something whenever you go outside, and therefore you're never equipped with a camera to photograph. I get bitched at work, why aren't the UFO photos crisp and clean? Well, most of the time the UFOs at night are a light source. You can't make out what structure they're attached to. In the daytime, they're putting out as much reflectivity off the sun if they're metallic of some kind. You can't make out the detail. It's not like a car out in the street where you can go up and kick it and you can make out the outline. So I've had several sightings. My favorite sighting is the one I had at the radar base, which is no longer in existence, but was made famous in 1975 due to the flyover of UFOs, where it was tracked on radar. 4 military installations in the States were intruded upon at the same time. This is October and November of 1975. The Falconbridge radar base is no longer there, but I had a sighting there in 1990, and my personal impression was that the UFOs were there investigating as to why was the radar base no longer functioning. It had been closed down in 1986-87, and I have as a souvenir, I went to the base, I snuck up there when it was still standing, and I managed to get that piece of paper that you get in the elevator that talks about the weight distribution, and it actually says Department of National Defense, CFS Forces Falconbridge, Pineview, Ontario. And that's my personal souvenir of that base. There's nothing that survived off that base. And that UFO was the next day I went back and we measured one of the buildings. I went up there with 2 people from a local little tabloid paper. And after they had finished their smokes, we proceeded to measure the building by walking one side and then the other. Turns out that the building was 40 feet by 40 feet. So whatever I saw the night before or the weeks before that was 40 feet in length and pulsating a reddish, pinkish light that was pulsating irregularly, not even like a heartbeat. That was the sighting that made me come out of the ufological closet, so to speak. I called police to report the sighting, because at that time I hadn't joined MUFON until 1991, and they kept me online long enough to determine whether or not I was nuts. So I said, okay, the police is not the place to call the reports. Although, in 1975 incident, a lot of the witnesses were police officers and a nursing staff at a nursing home. that I'd seen the UFOs, the smaller objects, the 40, 50-foot jobs that were flying around town. A few years later, I got a phone call. Automatically, my sixth sense kicked in and says, I got to tape record this guy, even though I didn't get his permission. So I set my tape recorder on, and it was a radar technician who described how what they tracked on radar in 1975 was larger than the largest plane we had in our inventory. And it hovered for over 2 hours between 42,000 and 72,000 feet at 30 nautical miles south of Sudbury, which is over the town of Lively. And it's 1975. And I don't remember, I was in school then. I was in grade 6. And I don't remember hearing the sirens going off at the radar base. But years later, in 1990, when I had my sighting, and I was in my 20s, I knew what a plane was. The airport is exactly at eye level to that base from one hilltop to the next. And so that was a sighting that made me come out. And after that, I've had other subsequent sightings. And after my 10th sighting, I stopped questioning myself or questioning my sanity. I knew that there was something there.
I had a landing. So I have seen a UFO 150 yards away from me. It is a miraculous sight. It is an emotional sight. It is something that is very, very incredible to have that, because when you have an up-close and personal experience like that, it is something that you cannot... I don't even know how to explain it, Michel. You cannot imagine what you go through as a human being and how small and finite and mortal you feel when you see something that up close and personal. Because in reality, to the mainstream, this isn't supposed to exist.
Yeah. Did you have a feeling that you weren't supposed to be there? Was that the feeling you got, kind of?
Oh, hell no. Hell no. They actually, whoever they are, called me outside. I thought I was having a migraine headache when I had that incident happen. Wow. And I realized shortly after it subsided that it wasn't a migraine, that it was actually them, whoever they are, pulsating shapes on my head. It started off as a square in the front of my head, went to a circle on the left side of my head, and on the right side of my head it was a triangle. And then I got hit with an absolute anxiety attack that I needed to go outside. And within minutes of that happening, there was the ship.
Wow.
So,
have you ever...
Go ahead.
Have you ever sketched it? Have you ever sketched the ship? Like, could you sketch it even to this day?
If I had someone to sketch it for me, I would. I can barely draw a stick figure, man.
Yeah. That's why I've only sketched a few of the ones I saw, because, I mean, how do you sketch a pinpoint of light? Or, well, it behaves, obviously, in an unusual way, but... that sighting we had in 1997 is also depicted in the drawing with including the Big Dipper, and it doesn't do it justice. I mean, I had a camcorder with me, but I forgot to bring my charger, because it's not like I expected to go to the Mississauga First Nation and see a bunch of teepees, but I forgot my charger, and my camcorder at that time was the one with the full-size VHS tape inside, and it needed direct power because it kept dying out. The battery pack was no longer good. And with the sighting we had there, with that object flaring up to a bright glow and then a super bright glow and then down to a dull glow and then go black for about 7 seconds, and doing that 11 times as it crossed the sky, I could have screwed up with my camera and still gotten good footage if I would have had like my small Sony Handycam of what I have today. It pisses me off to this day that I would have had amazing footage of something that just couldn't be explained. I mean, it's an egg-shaped object. It catches on a light glow, then a super bright glow, and then go down to light glow again. And for 7 seconds, we counted it as it was black. And then it would catch on the light glow again, then the super bright glow, then down to a light glow again, and then black for 7 more seconds. And it did that 11 times. I tried to sketch it, and the sketch doesn't do it justice. So I know what you mean. I wish I knew somebody who knew how to use Photoshop or animation program and maybe try to reproduce it that way. Even for other people's reports that I've gotten, I've tried to locate somebody who could just visually do animation that would be so impressive. It would be exactly, more or less a good reproduction of what the people have actually seen, because they would be more impressive that way. And wow, yeah. But I can understand the shock, because even me investigating that landing case on Manitoulin Island in 1991, and it had happened in mid-September 1990, it's like I got the EBGBs. Like I didn't belong there. But it was weird. And I subsequently went back to see those traces 3 years later in 93, and after that they could easily dissipate or be brushed off. It was a 3/4 inch layer of gravel on top of limestone, and there was these two, I call them indentations, but it wasn't indentations. The gravel had been blown away, leaving these two donut shapes between 6 to 9 feet across each, and they were 16 feet apart from center to center. So that's why, after talking to Ted Phillips out of Missouri, these were two separate objects. So one was possibly assisting the other one. And he says, oh yeah, after the typical trace cases, they look similar to the Delphos, Kansas trace. And I've seen other ones since then that look like donut, where the mound in the middle is still there, whether it's dirt or grass or gravel. And then on the outer perimeter of the circle, but in the actual circle itself, the gravel or grass is blown away or flattened or whatever. And it's like, wow, after a while it gets boring, Ted Phillips would say. We're still trying to convince him to write a book about physical trace cases. I had just got a copy of a French one done in Canada, and I corrected the English version one, which I'm supposed to get a copy of, and it also lists the photos that were given to me of the Manitoulin landing case before I investigated it. And so those are convincing. The landing cases I wish they would happen more, because in today's time, I think it'd be pretty hard pressed to place it under the realm of being the military or whatever, because there's oddities to all these sites. I have one landing case in a place called Galt, Ontario, which took place in 1957, and it had something reminiscent to the case that happened with the Travis Walton case in terms of the tree's accelerated growth. In this one particular one here, it says basically, additional proof of the incident came after an analysis was made of the scorched earth discovered on the spot. Paul Hartman, a writer for the Galt Reporter, says the change in soil composition at the site was incredible. Topsoil dug up from the landing area glowed in the dark. Also, when grain samples from the burnt patch were studied under a microscope, it was found that they were healthier and sturdier than the samples taken from elsewhere in the field. Finally, the insects there had undergone a certain instability and peculiarity in character. Ants, where the saucer had touched down, were larger and stronger looking than their counterparts in untouched areas. The anthills themselves, according to Hartman, were much higher than usual, and a spider, which had accidentally found its way into a jar containing soil from the Galt UFO landing site, had grown to about 10 times the normal size for this particular species. So this kind of evidence should be mentioned more often than not, because it's what seals the nail in the coffin, so to speak, as to the validity of this phenomena taking place on this planet several times over. And Ted Phillips has recorded over 3,000 such landing case reports, personally investigating 500. I was lucky, just by pure luck, to investigate this one. It was initially reported to the local media radio station as a couple of crop circles, but then when I saw the pictures, once they were developed from the negative strip that was given to me, because on the negatives you couldn't tell that it was soil, like gravel and limestone. Crop circles are known to just occur on grass and wheat fields and stuff. And when I saw the pictures once they were developed, I said, holy shit, this is limestone and gravel. This is not a crop circle. This is something else. It's a landing site. So I was like, holy crap. And then I was all excited, and it was like cloak and dagger. I was given the negative strips before the pictures were developed, and the pictures are on the website, by the way. And I never got to find the guy to give it back to him. And he was, his last name was McAllister. And I said, yeah, the McAllisters on Manitoulin Island, but could never find him again to give his negative strips back so he can, So it's really weird how things happen when it comes to UFOs and investigating cases and stuff. You wind up with the weirdest evidence that could just seal a case in a court case and put somebody behind bars for life without possibility of parole.
And that's the thing. I do believe there is a lot of evidence out there that is provable. As you said, I mean, we've convicted people on murder charges for less than that. But
yeah, circumstantial evidence most of the time.
Exactly. But on the flip side, that never seems to be good enough for the skeptics out there. It never seems to be good enough for the government out there. And it really makes you wonder what they are hiding. And it has to be the technology. That's the only thing that makes any sort of question, answerable. It has to be around the technology.
Yeah, and for those, I just thought of something. You just reminded me of something that's just totally logical. We suspect the military to know a lot more. If that is so, why the hell would they have CIA operatives infiltrate UFO groups? Mm-hmm. Obviously, UFO groups are getting more information than the military. Nobody's reporting to the military. Nobody trusts the military today like they did in the 40s. Mm-hmm. So that's why I think ufological material-wise or data, I don't think the military has that much. I think there's another group within a group that actually, a very small group. The smaller the group, the easiest it is to control themselves and police themselves. And I think those are the real people behind the secrecy. It's not somebody that we would know just by looking at them or whether they wear fatigues or not. But the thing is, it's like, if they know so much, why the hell are they spying on UFO groups? Or I had my phone tapped. I had my phone tapped in the early 90s after the sighting at the radar base. A lot of weird things would happen. I couldn't use my phone. There was static on the line. I had to go to the local tavern and use their payphone outside to call the only person who would believe me at the time. And I had met that man from Inco at that time, Don Campbell. He's the first one you'll see. When you go to my audio clips page, he's the first one who has several first-hand, second-hand, and third-hand stories, all in audio, interviews I've done with them, of the sightings that took place in Sudbury area. And I called him on the phone and he believed me right away. But it was weird. I've had people hang up after me and my friends and say, "Did you hear double clicks on the phone line?" I said, "No." I couldn't hear them. But then I talked to Errol Bruce Knapp, who's my late, recently deceased web host, pirate radio guy of the heydays. And when he was in Toronto, MUFON Ontario suffered the same fate. They had a lot of phone taps, low phone problems. And it's like, yeah, it's not imagination. It's not bullshit. They are seriously struggling to get as much information as they can, whoever they are. And they're spying on UFO groups because we're more likely to have the ones to have the most information. And we do. I mean, it's the way it is. And, it's kind of funny that we suspect them of having all this technology back engineered and stuff, and yet they're still spying on individuals and trying to close down WikiLeaks or whatever, and now they're villainizing whistleblowers instead of glorifying them, because whistleblowers like McKinnon, like Snowden, we need people like that because they are calling up all the bullshit that's going on behind the scenes that we are told to look the other way, that we are unaware of. All the bad shit that's being done to us as a society, they are the whistleblowers. We need them. And Linda Howe even said that there was going to be an upswing of a lot more whistleblowers coming forward, because some of them on the inside will be so pissed off at how this is all being used and against us and whatever. They're going to turn the tables, and there's going to be so many whistleblowers, hopefully, that will just, we'll get the transparency that we want. So far, everything is secrecy this, secrecy that. People bitch about the politicians. Well, the politicians are only puppets. It's the people with the money behind them that control everything. And whether they have the technology advanced back engineered from UFOs or not, whether it's workable or not, whether it's usable or not, they are holding it back from us to keep us from having free zero-point energy, from keeping us from not using oil or hydro. Here in Ontario, we have the highest hydro rate ever. I used to pay, well, I'm still paying up till January. We'll be paying like every 2 months. But now with Catherine Wynne and the carbon tax and the hike in hydro, I mean, it's bullshit. The stuff is run on nuclear power. Most of the time it's produced by nuclear power. There's got to be a point where hydroelectric power is almost kind of in a weird way free energy, because it's just being propelled up the line by magnets, and it circulates in one direction. Maybe we should just pay only when the system goes down or something or whatever, and have some people at the helm to keep an eye on the nuclear power plants if that's what's solely producing our hydroelectric power. Other than that, man, there's going to be innovations that are going to be suppressed, just like many inventions have been suppressed, that could just clear us of all this bullshit and make us be the civilization we're supposed to be at this stage in our existence. Copernicus or Galileo's discoveries were held back for 200-300 years. So we would have been 200 years, 300 years further along in science by now if they hadn't been quieted down or burnt at the stake or whatever. It's, so, yeah.
Let's get to a couple more questions here. John would like to know, in your experiences, have you ever been followed or encountered any men in black?
Nope, never. Never been. I've been followed by humans in a really scary way, but never by men in black. No, I know what to look for. Like there's a discrepancy with Men in Black ever since the movies came out. I love the movies, but the real Men in Black are definitely alien in origin. We don't know. Well, some indications seem to indicate that they're automatons, because they speak in a monotone voice. And in one particular case, the Men in Black actually excused himself from talking with this woman because he had to go and recharge. Now, who the hell says that? And a lot of times, like John Keel would report on some Men in Black reports where witnesses were right behind the vehicle, with 3 Men in Black in the car, and they would round a corner, and there'd be no way for that car to disappear, and yet that car would be gone with the 3 occupants, the 3 Men in Black. So there's something really weird about them. But now it's like, oh, everybody's a Men in Black. You got FBI agents wearing black. They're driving black US SUVs. So there's a mishmash there. There's a lack of distinction between the real Men in Black of the past and whatever agents will wear today. So I don't know. I've never been approached by a telepathic being. I know somebody who used to be a nurse here in town. She's moved away. At age 17 in the 50s, she actually encountered a 7-foot-tall Men in Black on the railroad tracks. Telepathic, spoke to her, and she was freaked out because we don't have 7-footers in this town at all. I've met only a few people that were really, really that tall, but in the 50s it was a really rare thing. And so, no, I've never encountered them. I don't know if I would like to, but maybe from a distance, a safe distance.
It's funny because I have been asked numerous times on this from guests off the air or whatever, and even listeners, have I ever been approached by Men in Black or any government officials or anything along those lines? And the truth to the answer is no, I haven't. But I also know, and I make it very publicly known, that my show, much like any other radio show, doesn't matter how big, how small they are, they can make a difference to the listener. They're not going to make a difference to government policy or government hidings or cover-ups or what they're doing in black ops. It's just not going to happen. So the way I look at it is, Why deal with that when we can deal with the experience? And I've never had a problem with it, and I hope I never do. That's just the way it is. Getting to another question here, this one from Robert. He is asking, do we really need the government to weigh in on this? They have lied and covered things up all along. What kind of validation do we as experiencers need from them when the aliens have already disclosed to us through our experiences?
I totally agree. We don't need the government to tell us what's going on. The experiencers, whether you just had sightings or you actually made contact, like being an abductee or an experiencer, we know more. It's like a doctor trying to tell you what's wrong with you when you know your body more in depth and detail than what the doctor could ever find out. So, yeah. The government, they obviously are lacking in certain things that they're struggling for, and maybe they look to us as people who know the answers. I mean, I know that abductees are under observation because they may have information that the aliens may have passed on to them that the military would desperately want to know, and it could be nothing. It could be just, talking about their favorite dish, what they like to eat. But they want to own every technological aspect and know everything to do whatever it is that they want to do at the expense of the rest of us who are left in the dark and having to deal with this on our own. We've, like I said, we used to have hypnotherapists. Still some hypnotherapists are looking into this. I haven't found one in town yet. I knew of one, but I've had people that really needed to talk to somebody like that because their experiences were very, very earth-shattering and stuff. But they won't look to the government for answers. The government's lied so many times, and they've lied about everything. So now you got people even second-guessing everything from the Apollo landing to whatever NASA is doing. And NASA, never has a straight answer. So it's like, in SETI, they're just as bad. It's a silly effort to investigate, as Stanford Freeman would say. I mean, they're studying, systems that are far away and stuff, but they're looking at computer screens with spikes and shit, and yet they're not looking outside, looking at the sky with binoculars. I'm not guaranteeing you're going to see a sighting the first or second or third time you go out, but if you do it long enough, often enough, you're bound to see something. I've seen many satellites, and I've also, on 2 occasions, I've seen the space station. What's the difference between space station and satellites? Well, it's the same thing. They're traveling at the same speed. I think it's 17,000 or 27,000 kilometers an hour, but it's slightly about 3 or 4 times bigger than a satellite. But same speed. Doesn't stop all of a sudden, take off and shoot off in a different direction unless it's broadsided by another satellite. Never seen that happen. Don Campbell says that in the late 60s, during one of their breaks, they actually saw the satellite schedule was listed in the Sudbury Star, a local paper back then, and one of the sightings that he had, along with other workers, is they saw the UFO scoop up one of our satellites, which disappeared for an entire year. And then Maclean's magazine reported a year later that the satellite was found, again, quote unquote, found, traveling at the same speed, in the same orbit, after it had been released by the UFO. They were studying our technology. So imagine that, having that ability to put back in place a satellite that they scooped up. And they witnessed this from the top of at that time he was welding. He was a welder, his master welder. He'd actually worked, his welding abilities were so good, he actually welded the nose cone of one of the Thrasher submarines for the States down in Sarnia, southern Ontario, way back in the 60s. And I trust him. And if he told me that they saw a UFO scoop up a satellite, I believe him. And there's other stories that I've heard that just were confirmed by other people that didn't even know him. So it's like, wow, there's so much stuff being hidden from us and lied about. Yeah, I wouldn't even turn to the government for anything, And now that we're learning, and one of the things I'm learning is that whoever's controlling the politicians, it's whoever they want in power, they put in power. So you know what? Voting doesn't matter. Nobody has a swing vote. There's no such thing as a swing vote. They either will put in power who they want will suit them best, you know. And so I basically am going to stop voting. It's all bullshit. It's all set up, made up, corrupt, and if I follow my own path, I've gotten more truth that way than following the official channels, you know. So, and I pledge my allegiance to the planet. I will not ever pledge my allegiance to a particular country. The aliens don't see us as having borders. You look at our planet, there's no lines, you know, separating the countries. I've talked to people on the internet from Russia, from Sweden, whatever. We're all on the same page. It's the governments that are making us be enemies with other governments and other people. It's not the people themselves. They don't want war. They don't want all this stuff. They want openness. They want transparency. You know, they want a better life for everybody. With all these costs adding to us, like with hydro and oil, you know, and to tell us that there's no other alternative forms of energy, that's bullshit, you know? How are we supposed to survive? We're going to go the same way of the dinosaurs and the Romans and the Egyptian Empire if we keep this up. Pure and simple.
Another question from Paul in the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker. He is asking, Michel, what do you think about the Arecibo response? Hoax or legit?
Oh, the Arecibo response. I would have to look into that. I didn't see that one. The one that surprised me even more was the reply we got through a couple of crop circle patterns near a radio telescope in the UK. In 1974, I believe, we sent out Pioneer 10 with a message and also a schematic of where we come from, what we look like. And this particular crop pattern, which appeared within the last 10 years, actually was their response to what we had sent out. And you look at the pattern, it indicated they have a system where they have 4 moons or 4 orbiting satellites. The creature had a slightly larger head because there was like a very plain stick figure, if you will, representation of what they were like. And that convinced me that along with the big wow, the one wow that they got also in the late 70s, I believe, that was something that kind of raised an eyebrow. But this recent Arecibo one, I haven't really looked at it. I heard about it though. I definitely want to take a look and see what happened there.
Crop circles are just an amazing phenomenon because they are just an incredible piece of art, and the way they are spun. I mean, there's videos, I believe, out of the Netherlands showing 2 orbs kind of flowing over a wheat field, and then all of a sudden this crop circle appears. What did you think of that video, and what do you think is creating them? I think that video is, if it's the same one, I think it's a snowflake pattern, and I think it's out of the UK. And one investigator who actually shot it, his name was Peter Sorensen, he was even skeptical about it, but I said, well, you shot the damn video, and the crop circle was there, the pattern was there the next day. All indications, the information seems to indicate that the crop circles are created within seconds, and unlike the skeptics or debunkers who will say the majority of them are fake, no, it's the other way around. There's very, very few fakes, and you can tell them apart very easily because the plants are damaged. If you're going to walk on them with ropes and boards, you're going to crush the plant, and they're not going to be not going to be primed for harvesting. The real crop circles, the majority of them are definitely real. They're very complex in mathematics, and they're created within seconds. There was a video that I did place on my website, and hopefully it'll be up and running in about a week. It's a documentary on crop circles, and there's a pilot who talks about flying over a field which was totally bare of any pattern, and 20 minutes later he flew back over, coming back, and this is daytime, and there's a super large pattern that just appeared while he was gone, and that's within a span of an hour.
And yet you would have seen telltale signs of a horde of people like going there, like an entire army doing this. And I can't imagine. I mean, yeah, some of them have pulled them off, like doing them at night. But who would not notice anybody working with flashlights? I'm sorry, but I won't believe anybody that says that they can fake it just wearing like night vision goggles alone without having the area lit up so that they know what the hell they're doing. It can't be done. Whether they use ropes and boards or some kind of measurements, I mean, you can tell, you're there long enough. If you're a smoker, you're going to be smoking cigarettes, or you'll find cigarette butts. I mean, I'd be hard pressed to believe that somebody will clean up after themselves and clean up all their cigarette butts. There's no evidence. There's never been any tire tracks or whatever in the real patterns. It's just we're given the impression that most of them are fakes and very few of them are real. And the more real ones are just the simple circle ones. The complex ones are obvious creations by humans, and I just don't believe that. I don't believe that. And in one particular crop circle pattern in Manitoba, a porcupine was caught in the act of the circle being formed, and it was squished down in a spiral formation. Another formation that appeared in southern Ontario, a horse wouldn't walk through it because there's some kind of energy emanating from it. You can walk right close to a crop circle pattern and your cell phone will stop working. Tractors will stop working. So that's something weird. That's not something that can be man-made that can have those side effects. There's no way. So people have to use their brain a little bit and really look at the data and the information being collected by Nancy Talbot and Linda Howe. Linda Howe, my friends are kind of wishy-washy about her. Yes, she got fooled by Richard Doty, but who doesn't get fooled once in a while? We all get fooled or taken in or whatever, and then you recover from that and you say, okay. It's like me. When I get a report, I won't put anything out in the media until I'm absolutely sure, because the last thing I want is somebody look at me and say, you got a fake case on your hands. That means, and people will assume, well, if that one case is fake, then the rest must be fake. So I said, you know what? Believe what you want. But, you have to be careful. We're almost like you have to police yourself to make sure that you get the right information before you go public or to the media, because you don't want to be made look like a fool. But the crop circle patterns are definitely not fake. The majority of them, and it's really weird stuff, like how do plants get magnetized? It's not even a metal. It's an organic, plant, and yet there's been that kind of evidence detected. There's a sound also being picked up by microphones, a shrilling sound emanating from the circles, and yet these small spheres, they have been also spotted over the formations. You don't necessarily go, I don't know how the process is done. The circle, the little balls of light don't necessarily go exactly where the pattern is laid down within seconds, but in that one footage, they just gently swoop over like a couple of, small tiny planes side by side, wing to wing, flying over, and all of a sudden parts of the crop circle lays down. Then two other spheres come from a different direction, and the branches of the snowflake form within seconds. That's pretty fascinating. It's telling me there's energy sources out there that we haven't even tapped into yet. I believe in 1 square inch of air, there's particles in there that could probably generate enough power to run in a small city. You just need the collector, a converter, and a transmitter. Once you find that you've devised that device, you'll have free energy, So, there's a lot of stuff that's being kept from us, and the reality about crop circles, the reality about UFOs, the reality about Bigfoot, the reality about Bermuda Triangle, Virgin Mary apparitions, ghosts. I've studied and researched all that in my young teenage years, and it's opened my eyes to a lot. And it's like you got to take one phenomenon at a time, and I decided to specialize into UFOs. Although I'm open to the other stuff for sure, and finding out that, I lived in a town called Hanmer, just north of Sudbury, and to find out that there was 14-inch footprints of Bigfoot, it still floors me, because to my mind, I always thought Bigfoot was out west in the Rockies, out by your end.
Quick question from Steve here. He is saying, if crop circles are real, what do you think their purpose would be? Some sort of communication?
Yeah, they're trying to tell us something. Some crop circle patterns look like a cross-section of the inner planets. For instance, there's one particular pattern where the inner planets seem to be displayed, and yet the orbit where Earth is supposed to be, there's no Earth. So what is that supposed to mean? That if we continue on the path that we're following now, that we'll eventually annihilate ourselves or erase ourselves from history? I don't know, but I think a lot of the patterns are very complex in mathematics, and possibly all of them have a hidden meaning behind them. It's like I said before, like, how you can't sit across the table and discuss anything with an insectoid. You're talking about two different origins, primate and insect. What, if anything, do you have in common with an insect? So to try to understand their language, whoever's doing that, the crop circles, I couldn't even tell you which species is doing what. Anybody who's saying, like I said before, anybody claiming they know, this is what this species does, and this is what they, apart from the regular, the basic info we have on them, like their height, the fact that they're all telepathic, that's already known. It's the other stuff that's not known. When somebody comes along and says that they know all those answers, I know they're full of crap, because we haven't gotten that yet. The aliens are not volunteering everything. It'd be like giving a loaded gun to a monkey. You're not going to give everything to an inferior race, or show him everything. Do you want to know about the universe? We'll tell you how everything works. No. We have to progress at our own pace, even though that the Roswell crash and everything that came before and after has accelerated that development tremendously, and we haven't been able to sociologically catch up to that knowledge and that information and technology. So we can't handle that technology just yet, because we're not at the same level spiritually and sociologically, and intellectually. So we have to be given a break in understanding before we can actually go on and achieve more. Some people are trying to rush too much, like the military or whoever's behind the military, pushing them to do all this stuff in secrecy. They want to know everything and do everything and own everybody and rule over everybody. You're doing too quick, too fast, it's not going to work. And there'll be a lot of headbutting, and it's not going to be a pretty picture.
Michel, we have officially run out of time tonight. Wow. Quick 3 hours, my friend. Quick 3 hours. I appreciate you taking the time. Tell us where we can get some information and our listeners can take part in it as well.
Well, they can look for my website, which is newforest.com. New Forest basically it's the first letter for the following words. It's Northern Ontario UFO Research and Study. So N as in Normand, O, UFO, R as in research, and S as in study. It started off as an archive from the newspaper clippings covering Northern Ontario, but then it definitely branched off to include everything from that I could get my hands on from around the world, just to show that it's not just a North American phenomenon, but it's a worldwide phenomenon, and it involves all of us, that we have a stake in all this knowledge, and no small group should be the sole owner of all that's come from this research. It should be shared freely, and with knowledge comes progress in a very good way.
Michel Deschamps, thank you so much for being on Spaced Out Radio tonight. You hold on, my friend. I got to wrap this thing up because Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL is rocking in the background, and that means it's time to call it another night here on the SOR. Tomorrow night, Samantha Mowat, all the way from Scotland on her vacation. It's not stopping her from making her monthly debut on this show. She does it the every second Tuesday of the month, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. Remember, if you want this episode to hear it again or hear anything else, you go to spacedoutradio.com. You go to our YouTube channel, tune in, or you can download it on iTunes. We're going to rock it out here as we will talk to you in exactly 21 hours from now. Have a good one, space travelers. I'm out of here.